Hello?
My dude, what's up?
Hi. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm alright.
All right. Before we start, you want to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, what your background is?
Sure, I guess. I just sent my kids away.
Like sent them away forever? What does that mean?
Yeah, no. They went over to go have some turkey, so it's kind of nice that they got to do that. But yeah. So I'm a convert. Well, I'm not a convert. I was born into a Mormon family I have Libyan family as well that were Muslim, so I was raised with them. Mm-hmm. So I was raised as a Mormon Muslim, kind of as a Sunni, but I married a Deobandi, which is an extreme, like a revivalist kind of culty sect of Sunni Islam. So I married a man that was Deobandi and had some kids and moved to Pakistan and India and Afghanistan and Qatar and Saudi and kind of moved everywhere, and the UK, and I became very extreme. So I have a nursing background as far as my career and stuff, but right now I'm off for the year writing a book because I don't know. I decided to do it, and I'm doing some counterterrorism stuff that has been really nice. I really feel like I've been able to give back to the country because the country has given so much to me when I didn't have any help. So it's been nice.
Are you so do you live in the United Kingdom or do you live in the United States right now?
No, I'm in the United States right now.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I guess we can just without digging through the 20 trillion tweets. Yeah. What I guess. Do you have a specific topic that you wanted to talk about, or?
No, I just the idea that Islam isn't a threat to the West, I think is yes and no. I agree with that, but I also disagree with that, and that for various reasons. So I think that's kind of something good. I want to have people, like I had mentioned, be wary of Islam, but at the same time, not demonize all Muslims. And it's really important, especially with the differences in sects, because you've got the majority Sunnis and you have Shias and Sufis and Ahmadis, and then you have the breakoffs from the individual sects as well. So like when you talk about female genital mutilation, you're not talking about every Muslim and every sect and so when people talk about it, they tend to generalize. And I really have made it a point the last several years to separate like Sunnis from Shias, and it's hard for people in the West to understand that. For me, it's very easy because obviously it's my culture, but I would get into that as well because Islam is a culture as well as a religion as well as a political entity.
Sure,
right?
as a lot of religious systems are, right? To some extent. I think Islam, you sound like you're very much more familiar with it than I do. Islam sounds like it has a little bit of a deeper political aspect to it than, say, Christianity, where it seems like the political systems are somewhat baked into Islam, but Christianity manifests itself politically in a lot of ways as well, right?
Mm-hmm, I agree. I think they're both horrible. I mean, as far as, freedom and things for people that... But
they're both horrible. Well, I mean, so from what you said so far, it doesn't really sound like we disagree on anything. And I don't expect you to be familiar with any of my background at all. But was there anything that I said on Twitter, I'm curious, that you found extremely disagreeable?
No, it was somebody, a friend of mine. I had seen the tweets about she was having a fit about
Patricia?
I don't even know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a giant issue with you and talking about Islam and how you want to only talk about Islam in the West. And
I'm sorry. Just to illustrate that point really quickly. Basically, in America, in the United States, how long have you lived here for, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, 10 years.
10 years, okay. So in the United States, a lot of people will make this claim that Islam, or people used to say ISIS or Al-Qaeda, is it represents a massive threat to the United States. And I think we would both agree that that claim is pretty absurd, that Islam is not in any way, size, shape, or form a threat to the United States right now. Maybe you could argue with some European countries with immigration-related issues, it might be, but in the United States, not as much. And I usually, when I speak, I usually speak out against really alarmist or hyperbolic rhetoric like that. So I was speaking specifically to the United States, and that's why I got irritated that people tried to reframe that into Islam is totally fine all over the world, which wasn't really my original statement. Sorry, I'm just clarifying that.
Gotcha. Sorry. So my concern is because I can't, there's things I can't and I can't talk about because of what I do, because I work with government agencies. So because of the counterterrorism that I do, I'm aware of a lot more threats to our safety than the normal layperson. So even I don't know how to communicate this with people without sounding overly alarmist, because it's terrifying. If you really get deep into it, it's absolutely terrifying. But you can't, again, I don't want to feed the beast that is hate all Muslims. So again, I don't want to be overly alarmist, but I want people to, I don't want it to be thought of as it's not a threat. It is absolutely a threat, but I don't know that when it comes to Christianity, that it's very different. I think that they could team up and become a superpower if they really wanted to, if they really, really thought about it. And then the rest of us would be fucked. But
so I guess there are a couple different issues that we can talk about. The first one, I guess, and it sounds like you agree based on what you said with most of this, but the first thing that really irritates me, this is a simpler topic, is I find that Christians are insanely hypocritical when it comes to criticizing other religions. Do you mind telling me what is your personal religious belief right now, or you don't have to share it if you're not comfortable?
No, I'm an atheist now.
Okay, sir. Sure. So I'm an atheist as well, right? So if you were to have a discussion with me about the philosophy of religion or whatever, I will gladly lambast every religion. I think that Islam and Christianity, pretty much anything that has any kind of deity or whatever, is deity, one of those words.
Yeah,
godlike figures, deity, yeah, are pretty dumb. That the prescribing ethics or morals from old books and usually the treatment of women, and there's a whole bunch of issues with a lot of these religions that I just think are horrible. And I feel that way about most religions. And the big problem that I have is, especially in the United States, and I'll speak mainly about the U.S. because that's what I'm comfortable with. We can talk about some European countries. I know a little bit about the issues, but mainly the U.S., that a lot of Christians will advocate for things that I think would be advocated for by extremist Islam or by extremist Muslims.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is my big problem with figures like, I don't know how many YouTubers you follow, but people like Lauren Southern or Roaming Millennial will say things like, Islam is disgusting because it does this and this and this, and then on their next tweet they'll say, by the way, women that wear this type of clothing are fucking disgusting sluts. And it's like, okay, well, you're trying to tell women that because they wear something they're less than human. This is essentially what most fundamentalist religious people advocate for. So that kind of hypocrisy really bothers me when Christians will get up on a platform and then hardcore call out other religious beliefs.
It's the purity culture. I have a lot to say about the purity. I don't think we're going to argue very much. I think it actually might be really good.
Well, careful. This is the easy point. The next one I'll get into, we can get into more geopolitical, Muslim-related
sure.
stuff. But this is the easy one, sure.
But I think that if anything, even if we do disagree and argue a little bit, which is fine, I don't take anything personally, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
But I just think even when we agree, I think it's interesting and it helps humanize Muslims, and that's really my end goal, is to demonize Islam and humanize Muslims, if that makes sense.
Sure. Which I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. The same thing with I shit a lot on Christians just because of their hypocrisy, but I would never advocate for I hate Christian people, but more just recognize that a lot of bad stuff comes from religion, and we all need to be cognizant of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second part, okay, so this is the more complicated topic, and it's if you might know so much more about this than me, so maybe you'll talk circles around me here. For the little bit that I know, when it comes to being critical of things that are going on around the world, we can speak to terrorism directly, and you can talk on this for a bit and tell me if you agree or disagree. When I look into situations like what's going on in the Middle East, the more that I read and research about it, especially with everything going on with the Syrian conflict in Iraq over the past 10 or 15 years, there's never been a point where I read something and it's like this group of people was sitting here and they were totally happy, and then a radical religion came in and it indoctrinated them, and now they all want to kill people. That never seems to be the story, but rather you have groups of people that are oppressed by other groups of people that then get funded by other groups of people, right? Like Sunni oppression in Iraq that's funded, and then Sunni terrorism that's funded by the Gulf states and whatnot, that all of these things play out as these geopolitical narratives where religion is a factor, sure, But I feel like you could swap out religions here, and with these same prerequisite conditions, you would still more or less get like a similar thing. That if you had like Protestants in Iraq that were being oppressed by Mormons, and that if the Gulf states were all Protestants, that they would be shipping money to Protestant extremists in Iraq in order to fight against the Mormon, majority government and whatnot. That I feel like when people focus on religion, it feels really lazy to me, where you just want to blame everything on the religious beliefs instead of taking responsibility for the horrible geopolitical nightmare that's been created in the Middle East by all these other countries.
I disagree and I agree So I think that will be an interesting discussion.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you disagree with there?
Well, it has a lot to do with the differences, the different cultures. Within the different cultures you have, say, I know Pakistan very well. That's the country that I made babies with. Pakistani. I lived in Pakistan for the longest time. I became radicalized in Pakistan. That's my specialty. I within Pakistani culture, and Pakistan is an Islamic state, you have different castes, say, right? So you have the different, and there's many different sects in Islam too. Majority Sunni, of course, and you're going to have the Sunni that are generally the ones that are the most extreme. And I have argued with other ex-Muslims that I think it is a matter of economics and people being taken care of and having things provided for them. If they have no life and no future, then they're going to give their life for an extremist cause. But I argue that the religion has a lot more to do with it than a Christian religion would, because of the holy books themselves and because of the way they have to be taken. Not that, and I think it's that people that tend to be like me. I was very lost, and I tended towards the extreme because I was so lost and I was so messed up in the head, and I looked for the bad things that I wanted to focus on. So I think that instead of the text causes it, but at the same, does that make sense? Like it's also
to support your belief. A lot of people would argue that it's the economically fucked that turned to extremism. However, people that are recruited out of Europe to join ISIS, a lot of those people were actually like middle class people that were just kind of lost in life. Sure.
Yeah, that's what the ex-Muslims would argue with me about, and I still, yes, that's a small percentage. But
I'm agreeing with you in that a lot of the people that come over weren't actually economically disadvantaged. They were people that were lost. If you look at the ISIS propaganda videos, a lot of them were just like, hey, like you've got nothing going on in your life. Nobody likes you. Come fight for us. We can give you a gun and a purpose and something to really believe in, right? That these weren't all just economically fucked people. Sure.
Correct. Yeah. So, but it's just, it's the way the texts have to be taken, and it's the fact that they have to be taken so literally. Again, it depends on the sect, but it lends itself to extremism, and it lends itself to violent acts. Obviously, it's not every single Muslim is going to take that, even though it has to be taken literally. This is how it works. I believed that apostates needed to be killed, right? I believed that you could not curse Muhammad or Allah. That was it. But it wasn't up to me to kill that person. It was up to the people in charge. So I would turn them in, and then the police, and then eventually, one of the imams, and then judges. They would have to the Mulvis, they would rule on all these things and then sentence that person. I wouldn't feel bad about that because that apostate needed to die, but I didn't do it. So when I supported terrorist acts, it wasn't that I was like, I would be a terrorist, but I believed that Allah willed it. It never would have happened if Allah hadn't willed it.
Sure. Allah
would have stopped it. So that makes perfect sense. In my Muslim brain, that made sense to me.
Have you ever heard of the Milgram experiment? I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, it's basically, there's an experiment where somebody's in a room and they have to shock somebody as punishment for getting a test answer wrong. And a lot of people that do this go through with the experiment the entire way, up to lethal levels, because they have a proctor in the room, or like a professor that's telling them to do it. And it's that diffusion of responsibility onto an authority figure is a big driving factor in people, in otherwise good people doing pretty horrible stuff. That's kind of what you're describing now. It's just kind of interesting to me.
Right. I think I had heard of that. I didn't know that's what it was called.
Sure.
I've seen otherwise wonderful people do. I have thought and done, like I said, I told my gay brother that I wanted him to die because he was gay. And while he's sobbing, and as a Mormon, I hated gays too. So it was kind of something that I needed. It was very important that gay people were here. I have a gay daughter now. I always joke that I learned, I learned compassion and empathy and things I didn't have. I didn't even know that I was lacking. But I've seen otherwise wonderful people just sink to the levels of depravity, especially in a mob when someone's being killed. My ex-husband, for one, I mean, he wasn't a terrible person all the time. He did terrible things, but it was especially the whipped into that frenzy. There's an electricity in the air. I mentioned the smell, but you can smell death. You can smell like the mob frenzy. I don't know how else to explain it. And it's the strangest phenomenon. I've not ever seen it. I don't ever want to see it again because it's terrifying. But it's really weird. It's just, and these are normal doctors, nurses, lawyers, normal people. And then they turn into these monsters and then they're back to being normal again. And it's like, it never happened. And it's crazy. I think it's just, it's quite fascinating. If I had money and time, I would probably study more about psychology. But now I have children to put through university, so that's not going to happen.
So typically when I have discussions, I try to have my discussions as policy oriented, or basically my conversation is how can we make the world a better place? What are the problems that we need to talk about, and what can we do to make the world a better place? So when I look at things like Islam or Christianity, one thing that's really frustrating to me, and it was hard to tell on your tweets, and I know that everybody on Twitter can be a little bit misconstrued. I have this problem sometimes, that a lot of people that get on Twitter and want to rile against Islam are basically saying what amounts, in my opinion, to really stupid things like Islam needs a reform. We need to reform Islam, stuff like this, or like we need to fix Islam, and it seems to me like there are so many things that we can do in the world, and so many examples of Muslims who live under Islam today that aren't crazy, radically extremist people, right? Like, for instance, there are over 3 million Muslims that live in the United States that aren't killing apostates or beheading women for, getting raped or other, similarly horrible things. And then it seems like there are so many problems in the Middle East right now that have nothing to do with religion, like all of the geopolitical vying for influence that other countries are doing in that area. It seems like it makes so much more sense to focus on these issues rather than just levy all of the blame on Islam and say, well, Islam needs to fix itself, while Russia and NATO continue to fuck around in the Middle East, and Muslims around the world that aren't in, these really fucked countries tend to do a lot better. That just seems like a really disingenuous position to take, where nothing good can come from that conversation, And as another point to that real quick, like, people always point to like, well, Christianity had a reformation. That reformation was hundreds of years ago. I don't want Christians from the 1800s or 1900s here today. Like, Christianity didn't really undergo a reformation that made the voting for gay marriage legal. It's just that people became a little bit less Christian, really, I think, in the West. All right, sorry, go ahead.
I think that's what it is. I don't think that. I don't think Islam can't be reformed, and I don't mean it's maybe in generations from now there might be a kinder, gentler Islam. Again, you don't know this. There's differences in sex. You never know how that's going to go. But I think that my reason for saying that is because they already believe that Islam is perfect. The Quran is perfect. Muhammad is perfect. If you tell a Muslim, a Sunni, that one word in the Quran is questionable, you're guilty of heresy, and that's the death sentence. Not that they would carry it out themselves, but that's what the Quran says. And you have to abide by what the Quran says. So that's where to them, it's already perfect. So when you have a Westerner come up and say, you need to reform Islam, you need to fix this. And everyone goes, but what about Majid Nawaz? And Majid's not even a reformer. He even says he's not a reformer. But you talk to anyone that lives in the Middle East, in Saudi, in even Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Qatar, UAE, they will all tell you reform is impossible. So I think it's a pipe dream. Forget it. Throw it out the window. That's stupid. Let them be. If that's what they want to do and live like that, why does it matter to you? Right? It's when they come and they want to change laws to make give themselves special privileges that the problems start happening. And it happened. That's where I think it would be interesting to bring up Europe, especially in the UK, where I'm the most familiar, because I married into a second generation, an immigrant into the UK. So I got a very good taste of their relationship with British people. I was spat on by white British people. And I'm light skinned, but I'm not completely white. Mm-hmm. And I was called a Paki lover, and I had a bottle broken over my head. And so I was abused by white people, not Asian people. We call them Asians. And I have to be careful not to do that because Americans don't like that.
It's fine.
But that was white people. So I got every side of it. And so it's I have a unique perspective, and I don't, there's a lot of things at play. You can't just say one thing is going to fix it, or mm-hmm. one thing can change it. All you can do is introduce them to education. And really what the big problem is, and even you can help in the future if you're ever interested, things need to be translated into Arabic and electronically made available to people in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. They're begging for it. That's the most important thing. That could help the most as far as Middle East relations especially with the young people.
Sure. I guess when you talk about certain religious beliefs that people have, or the fact that the Quran is like the literal interpretation of the Word of God or whatever, I feel like when one of the things that I know that's true about Christianity, and I'm pretty sure this is true of all major religions, is that even if you have the exact same holy text or scripture or the Bible or whatever for Christians, you can have people that worship or celebrate or interpret that text differently, across different sects of the religion, even though they profess belief in the same book. Like, for instance, if you look at the Ten Commandments, I don't even know if I remember the Ten Commandments, but I know that there are some Ten Commandments in there that some of these are even against the most ardent Christians aren't really worshiping, right? Keep holy the Sabbath. There are still plenty of people that work on Saturday or Sunday, depending on what you believe the Sabbath is. Or other parts of the Bible where the interpretation is very flexible based on whatever particular denomination you're in or whatever your particular parish is. I guess this is kind of going into the argument where I feel like the goal should be to introduce people to Western values and then let that serve as a moderating factor on their religion rather than trying to reform the religion on its own, if that makes sense. I'm sure there are some Sunnis in the United States that are nowhere near the same as Sunnis in Saudi Arabia, right?
Oh yeah, they can be. They're very similar but very different. Yes, mm-hmm. There's a lot of differences.
And it's not like they have different versions of the Quran, right? There's not the King James version of the Quran that gets rid of all the offending text.
That's the problem. I think the Quran itself is there's only one, and mm-hmm. it only can be interpreted one way. Mm-hmm. What you have, the problem is the hadiths, because the hadiths tell the people how to live their life according to what they interpret the Quran to mean. So if you have a hadith about talking about Aisha's life, and so you have you're supposed to do everything that you read about in the hadith, whatever is commanded, because you have the law of abrogation, mm-hmm. which I don't believe is in Christianity. And all the good.
Wait, what is the law of? Can you explain that? Sorry.
Anything that the newest law that was passed down by Allah, written in the Quran, is the one that is law. So anything that's older, so say if you had a New and Old Testament, the Old Testament would have been thrown out because of the law of abrogation.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
What happened was you have Mecca Muhammad and Medina Muhammad, and the nice bits got thrown out with the law of abrogation. So that's where the different sects come in. There is differences in the Quran where you have verses that you don't accept because of the law of abrogation. So mm-hmm. I believe Sufis get around that because of that. And Sufis are more a mystical kind of cult. I don't know if you know anything about them, but Ahmadis as well. They're very peaceful, kind of about reinterpreting the Quran into believing the more peaceful passages are the ones that they're supposed to believe. But regular Sunni Muslims, I shouldn't say regular, Sunni Muslims kill Ahmadis because they're not real Muslims. And they kill Sufis because they're not real Muslims. I hated Ahmadis.
And some Sunnis, right? I doubt every Sunni across every country. Like I said, there must be some Sunnis in the United States. I know that Sunnis normally a Gulf state thing. But I'm sure there are some Sunnis around the world that don't kill non-Sunnis, right?
Yeah, when I say kill, I mean I don't mean literally. I just mean that that's the commandment that you're supposed to do, and so some will take that very seriously and literally and do it.
Okay.
I have to watch for my life because I'm very open, and not just with family, but other Muslims, because I say things they don't like. Same thing with that Imam what's his name, Tawhidi guy, because he's speaking things, even though he's selling a kinder, gentler, reformed Islam, which I don't believe in. He is telling the truth about what's in the Quran and what Muslims believe. And I appreciate that, because it's a conversation that no one's having, because you can't criticize Islam, because I believe, this is my personal belief in the West, white Western people equate Islam with brown. And
equate Islam with what?
Brown, like brown people.
Oh, sure,
so
yeah.
They cannot criticize it because they feel like they're being racist. And I totally understand that, but there are entire countries of white Muslims. Islam is supposed to be for every culture, every race across the world. And a Pakistani, an Asian person, would have a fit if you described Islam as an Arab thing. They're very, very proud of their cultures as well as being a Muslim. So it's something that I think people in the West don't really understand. They see Islam as a monolith, one thing, you know? So again, that's why I kind
of... So when you described, did you say tafsir? How did you pronounce that?
What, tafsir?
Yeah, tafsir. Like something like that. And again, I'm very, very familiar. I was raised a Catholic, so I've got a really extensive background in like Christian kind of related stuff, or especially Catholic related stuff. When you talk about like different interpretations of the same text, that sounds like something that exists in Christianity that kind of works just fine, right? That in some, are you familiar with like the Westboro Baptist Church?
Oh yeah, and Mormons too. They have their own version of the King James. But they added their own text to it, so it's the Mormon King James version of the Bible. It's not really reinterpretation though. It's the same Quran. It means the exact same things in Arabic.
Oh, okay.
The meaning of the words don't change. It's the latter and former verses. So there's really peaceful, kind of like hippy dippy happy verses in the beginning of the Quran, but the later ones are the ones that are law. So that's where the other sects come in, as well as hadith. You can't argue with a Muslim that the Quran is not to be taken literally. You can't.
Sure, but can't you? Aren't there? Well, I mean, there must be. There are Muslims though that still like believe in the Quran that don't have the same extremist views on things like gay marriage, for instance. Like in the United States, I think Muslims are more in favor of gay marriage than evangelical Christians are. Still following the same Quran that would lead some Muslims to literally kill gay people in Gulf states. I'd
say 65% in the U.S. would be against it, which is amazing, because anywhere else you have 95% against it in any Islamic dominated country. I think that America it's an amazing place, because you have, this is where I argue that it's not the threat of terrorism to the West. It's the threat of not watching what's happening in Europe and being very careful, because you want to open up your country to immigrants that need to come here, because you can't close your borders to anybody. But at the same time, you can't let too many in all at the same time, because they do not integrate well. And it does not do them any good either, because I lived in an area in the UK. I did not see a white person for 4 months, literally 4 months. Nobody that I was around. The women were stolen at 15, forced to marry, brought to the UK against their will. They couldn't speak English. They were forced to live in these houses where their husbands would never let them out. These were my family members. And I didn't see a problem with this. And because they were not forced to integrate, these women and children were being brought up as though they lived in a third world country. They didn't have any rights. They didn't even know that they had rights. And I got kicked out and told by my family I couldn't talk to these women because I told them they had rights. I'm not even kidding. I was denied access to 4 cousins because I told them that they could go and they could they could get help. I couldn't believe, even in my crazy, extremist state, I couldn't believe the way that they were being treated. I got beat for it, but it was worth it.
Sure.
That's my problem.
Yeah,
with
no,
it. That's
I
my
understand, but I mean, like,
with them,
in the United States, in the Deep South, like, you can find similar horror stories that go on with Christianity, even. I guess all I'm trying to say is that, like, here, this is just, it came out recently, and I thought it was interesting. There was a big poll done for support for same-sex marriage, and Muslims in the United States were in favor of same-sex marriage, 42 to 52. 52% opposed it, 42% were in favor of it. And this number of being in favor of it was higher than Protestants, higher than evangelicals, and higher than a couple of, much higher than Mormons, who were at 26%, 14% Jehovah's Witnesses, that I do think it's possible to combat these issues without necessarily just saying, I feel like when you say, like, Islam is really, has a lot of problems and it does a lot of bad things, and then you, like, leave it there, I just feel like that's a really lazy way out of things, and it ignores everything that you can do to get people that are more in line with kind of like what we would consider like our collective Western values.
I don't think you understand, even in the West. This we're probably going to have, we're going to combat on a little bit.
Sure.
I, as an ex-Muslim and as an ex-extremist, Muslims lie, and they lie a lot, even in the West. It's something you're taught, and I'm not talking about taqiyya. I hate it so much when the thing I was complaining about, white Western dudes that, open up their mouth on both sides. It's, what about this and what about that? And, burn them all and ban them all and kick them all out. And taqiyya, they're all taqiyya, it's a thing. It's done out of love. And I don't know if this would make any sense to you. I think Christians do it as well. Mormons for sure do it. It's like lying by omission. And because you are looked at as beneath them. And this is, in my experience within the Sunni communities in America, in Illinois, in Michigan, in California, and there are a lot, I live in Los Angeles, there's a lot of liberal Muslims. I have Muslims that live next door to me I love and adore. And they don't wear hijab, and they're totally they're totally westernized and cool. And so it's not every Muslim, but they're not going to be honest to a Westerner. And you won't be able to, I don't have evidence of that. I don't have, there's no studies done, because they're not going to tell the truth. They're not going to be honest. I never told the truth, because I didn't feel like Westerners could handle it. And I didn't feel like it needed to be spoon-fed. And so you would say the opposite. There's a very famous story that we tell about an alcoholic. And so you tell the alcoholic that if you convert to Islam, it's okay if you drink. We can all drink. And the alcoholic says, oh, that's amazing. So he converts to Islam. And then you say, oh, you're a Muslim now, you can't drink. And he's like, what do you mean? And you're like, well, you can't leave Islam now, because if you leave, we have to kill you. So isn't it wonderful? Mashallah, you can't drink. Because you think if you stop them from sinning, you're helping them. Because if you don't stop them from sinning, you're going to burn in hellfire forever. Like, you don't want people to do that. So it's not that they hate. That's where I think a lot of the misconceptions on the right, they think every Muslim is an evil person that hates. It's not hate. It's love.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. This is the exact same thing with Christianity. I guess I just have a hard time believing that, like, only Muslims lie in their polls, but other Christian faiths don't. I don't know. That seems like a hard one for me to buy. I guess I'm just going off of this one poll for support for same-sex marriage and just the general idea that Islam in the United States isn't as radical as Islam in other parts of the world.
No, you're going to have we have pockets of a large percentage of Muslims. You're going to have more radicalization, especially if there's a lot of immigrants coming and going. But in general, it's much more pleasant to be a Muslim in America than anywhere else. Muslims in America are happy to be Muslims in America, because America is such a cool place for everybody. So I don't believe that Muslims in America want to fuck it up. They're not here to let's terrorize everyone. And it's the large numbers. You have problems in large numbers, unless it's done slowly.
Sure,
And
but like even in places like entire countries like Indonesia or Bangladesh, like aren't these countries where even if they have some values that we don't disagree or that we disagree with, these are less radical than places like say like post-revolution Iran or Saudi Arabia or some of the Gulf states, right? Even
Bangladesh. I watched a Christian girl get burned to death in Bangladesh, and nobody did anything. I mean, granted, it wasn't in one of a main city, but it's a very, very radical. And most extremists are born and raised in either Pakistan or Bangladesh. There's not even a generalized rule of law there. It's not a fun place to be. It depends. In those countries, it depends on whether you're in a big city or not. Really, I mean, once you're outside of a big city, it's really councils rule in all of those countries. So you're lucky if you're wealthy enough that you can live where you can have access to normal government and rule of law. Mm-hmm. So it's I don't know that's one of my biggest complaints, because people haven't been there, they haven't lived there, they don't, they might have watched some documentaries, or it's a completely different world than anything you could ever imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, I think on some hands you have to be careful though about like the personal experiences. For instance, like it's possible that you could go, say you go to Tennessee or Alabama, you could go to some place in the United States and then watch a gay person get, tied up to a fence and beat to death and then left to die, and then come away from that thinking like, well, I've been to the United States and they hate gay people there. I've seen, multiple LGBT people brutally murdered just for being gay in the United States. I think you have to be really careful sometimes that you don't let the personal experience kind of like overrule everything you might know as like a collection or like a collective idea.
But across the entire Islamic world, gay people get murdered. It's not just one country. It's not just one experience. I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Qatar.
Sure, I'm just saying like a gay person in the books. A gay person in like Indonesia is probably going to have a different experience than like an openly gay person in like Saudi Arabia, right?
Absolutely not. They're murdered and killed in Indonesia as well. There's not any safe Muslim country for gay people except Muslims in the United States. Nowhere, not Canada, not South America, not anywhere in the Middle East, not in Asia. Islam and homosexuality, they're incompatible because the Quran says it. And it's not like, this is where you don't understand. It's not like the Bible. You can't pick and choose. You can't say, well, these are the good bits I'm just going to pay attention to. Like Leviticus, I'm going to ignore, but the rest of it, I'm going to buy into. It is literal. So if you question one bit, it is heresy. That is why we get killed. It's not every Muslim, but it comes from the books. It's not like the Bible at all. I mean, have you read the Quran?
No, I haven't.
I would encourage you. I'm not being snotty about it.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage you though, because it's fascinating. It's disturbing, but it's really fascinating. I read it again as an ex-Muslim instead of a fervent believer just trying to memorize the Arabic, and brainwashed myself. And I was horrified at it is like the Bible in a lot of ways, but it is the Bible on steroids. And the difference between Christianity and Islam is we do die. Honor killings happen in America all the time. They get sent away to other countries and killed. It's not a once in a great while kind of thing. It's an all the time kind of thing. And that's where I feel like the West is failing Muslims. They're failing all of them, because I feel like there is a refusal to even call out the issues. It's not about reform. It's about human rights. There are women in America, just like in the UK, that are isolated and do not know that they have rights. They're slaves. And so that's all it is. Muslims can do whatever they want, but it's about equal rights and it's about human rights. That's it.
Sure.
So I'm very passionate about. People in the West are very confused about Islam and homosexuality. and the fact that there's some American Muslims that are more okay with it, therefore it must be okay in Islam. Like,
well, I don't think it's so much that it must be okay in Islam, more so that like people, even who are Muslims, can be convinced that homosexuality is at least tolerable, much the same that Christians who can cite direct biblical evidence that homosexuality is wrong can be tolerant towards homosexuality as well.
There's still like 13 countries where they put them to death.
Sure.
Out in the open. I would encourage you to maybe speak to some gay ex-Muslims and get their experiences, not just for out of interest, because it's
sure. But I know gay ex-Christians that have like really horrible experiences as well.
Sure, but their families don't kill them.
In the United States, I mean, we do have a pretty big history of LGBT violence in the United States.
Absolutely,
it's not as bad now. We've become a lot more progressive or whatever. But
it exists to this day, even in Islam, because that's part of the religion. Again, it's out of love. You kill them because you need them to stop sinning, and you have to take killing them very seriously. I don't know that you understand the literal nature of the Quran, or how. It's written into the Quran that you have to take it literally, and it's written into the Quran that you cannot change it because it's called bid'ah.
Sure, but I mean, wouldn't the existence of multiple interpretations of the Quran
there's not multiple interpretations of the Quran.
Well, how do you have like different sects?
It's the hadith,
sure,
not the Quran.
But don't your your laws and everything, or the way that you like interpret the Quran, don't those come from the hadiths?
Okay. Yes, it depends on the sect again.
Yeah, so I mean, like, if there are different, like, Shia, Sunni, like, different sects of Islam, then clearly there must be different ways of viewing the Quran.
No,
right?
No. Mm-mm.
How are they totally different sects then? Like, what do they disagree on?
Shias disagree on the lineage of Muhammad after he died. And who became his so it's Ali, and that's who they believe, so they worship Ali a little bit more. They also take, they believe in different hadiths than Sunnis, so they're a little bit more lenient, a little less extreme in their, it's not the interpretation of the Quran, it is the hadiths tell you stories about different people, and so you're supposed to live your life according to these stories from the Quran. So it's like this particular scholar has interpreted this particular a story in the Quran to mean this. So you're this sect, so this is the way you have to behave.
I mean, like that, and I'm not trying to just play a semantic game, but that kind of sounds like different interpretations of stories, no? Like different hadiths give you, no? It's
I don't know how to, if you say to a Muslim that the Quran is not literal and there's different interpretations, they will tell you you're wrong. There's one interpretation of the Quran. And
how do they explain then the existence of different hadiths then?
Because hadith isn't just a story from the Quran. A hadith is written by different people in different time periods. So it's kind of like it's like guidebooks, right?
Well,
so
a guidebook sounds like another word for interpretation. That's what I'm getting hung up on.
Right. But it's not. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not the things that are in the Quran. If I don't know how to explain this. Oh my gosh, I've never had this. I'm trying to think. I got to take myself outside of a. Sorry.
Sure, that's fine. Sorry.
It doesn't. It sounds crazy because you're right. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, well, it just sounds like different interpretations for the Quran.
So can I give you like a story in the Bible? Let's look at Genesis, right? The creation of Adam and Eve. That differing groups would say that the literal word of God is true here. However, one group would say that this story literally, like maybe, I don't know if you could say that, like a one hadith might say that the literal interpretation where this actually factually happened is correct. And then another hadith would say that, like, well, this is a story and God is explaining the creation of the universe in a way that makes sense for us humans, but literally exactly this didn't happen. But we do believe that this is the literal word of God, but it's to illustrate a greater point. That these would be two vying hadiths or interpretations, I guess, of the story of Genesis. Is that
except for hadiths they don't interpret stories from the Quran. All they are is a person talking about what Muhammad said, the sayings of the day. So it was a collection of his his wonderful things, because the Bible is a collection of stories by various people, and the Quran is literally just the word of God. That's it.
Sure.
Not
Although
Muhammad.
Christians believe that the Bible is divinely inspired, that every writer of the Bible was inspired by God himself, and that everything written in the Bible is truth from God.
But I think that that's what helped Christians with reform, was being able to soften, especially take it more allegorically, because I know that Christians don't take it literally.
Well, some do. There are some fundamentalist groups that do. But I mean, like, there is no way. So, for instance, a lot of Christians today are okay with premarital sex. You'll never find a part in the Bible that makes that okay. It's not possible that you can take something like that and justify it. But there's still a lot of Christians that do, even though there's no source in their holy text that would ever let them engage in premarital sex.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, there's going to be religious people that don't follow their holy texts all over the place.
Well, that's which is kind of like an interpretation to some extent, right?
Well, no, that just means they're not following the rules. It's not a different interpretation. They're not choosing to interpret it the way they want. If you're, as far as a Muslim, if you choose to break the rules, you're choosing to go to hell. That's it, just like a Christian. But you're not reinterpreting the religion. You're just saying, I ate pork one time when I was pregnant. I knew I was going to go to hell for that. I knew it, but I gave in. But I made that conscious decision, but I wasn't reinterpreting the Quran. It's not that the hadiths teach you how to interpret each individual story in the Quran. Mm-hmm. It's from the same time period. It's other sayings by Muhammad. It's like the Book of Mormon. That's a good. It's like the Bible and the Book of Mormon. That's what it is. And hadiths are just a bunch of, it's like Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, and the Book of Mormon. So they're other sayings by the same person that's supposed to be God, but it's just Muhammad, if that makes sense. So each sect has their own set of hadiths that they consider sound. That's how you can have some sects that are a little bit more extreme saying that child marriage is okay. And then you have other sects that are like, no, that's not cool. Just because Muhammad did it doesn't mean that it's okay. So that's where the hadiths come in. And then the lineage of Muhammad too.
Gotcha.
And then you also have the sects that take parts of the Quran and don't use the law of abrogation. So I guess you could argue that's reinterpretation. That's a tiny sect and they get killed for it. But technically, maybe that would be that. Maybe, do you think?
I guess it's really hard for me to understand that there are so many sects of Islam, and even for Sunni, there are different types of Sunni people, that there can be all these distinguishments, but then say that everybody follows without translating, or not translating, but everybody has the exact same interpretation of the Quran. I guess I just can't wrap my head around that, because people have different ideas of how laws should be implemented, or different ideas of how something should play out in the real world. That seems like a varying interpretation, I guess. Or maybe, I'm not sure.
You can't. That's the one thing that unifies all Muslims is the Quran, and that it's unchangeable. There's no other interpretation. That's the only thing that binds them together.
Well, but when you say binds them together, do Sunnis and Shias that war against each other in the Middle East feel bound together by their religion? I don't know. What do you mean by that?
Well, no, I just mean as a one. That's what they all have in common is the Quran. They don't feel that it binds them together, but that's what binds them together is the Quran.
Sure.
Then the difference is
Protestants and Catholics and Lutherans and whatnot are bound together by a similar holy book, but also wildly different interpretations.
And then you have Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. So I would say that I call Islam a cult because you can't leave without getting killed. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a cult. And they practice shunning and isolationism, and that's very much cult, tendencies. I recognize cults because of the Mormon Church. Mm-hmm. So in looking at Islam like a cult, to me, it explains more. I think that the having different fringe cult sects, like the Deoband, like my sect, the Deobandis, mm-hmm. Very extreme, very fringe, but read the same Quran, interpreted the same Quran the same way. It was the hadiths, the extra sayings by Muhammad. And we all know Muhammad didn't say it. I mean, it was just other people that, hundreds of years after Muhammad died, claimed that he said these things. And it was for whatever person was in power at the time wanted these things said, because they're very conviently
line up with laws that you would want to pass already in society, right?
A lot of religious law. Yeah. So very convenient. but as an atheist, I can say that. But to a religious person, even to a Christian, they get upset about that. They have a hard time, with any religion. Like, so, if you look at Islam more, to me, as a cult, I think it helps explain things more. The reason why you can't, the whole thing about the Quran not being able to be reformed, I think it's incredibly genius. I think the catch, I don't know what you call it. It tells you can't. I know that the Bible says something about that too. You can't question, because if you even question, you're questioning the literal word of God, and then you're guilty of heresy. And if you try to change it, you're also, I don't
know if that's necessarily true of the Bible. I only say that because I know, like, even Jesus questioned his faith when he was dying on the cross. But
no, because Muhammad's perfect. You literally believe nothing Muhammad did. That's how they can justify child marriage now, because they literally believe that he was perfect and everything he did was perfect, and you have to emulate everything he did and then some. So that's why you have reliance of the traveler, because everything was meant to be perfect.
Sure.
So you take that and you want to be Muhammad on steroids.
Sure. But then on the flip side of that, there are some Muslims that don't agree with child marriage, and there are Christians that do in the United States.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You have different, because Muhammad did it, you have Muslims that say, okay, he did that, but we know that's not okay. It's like some Muslims, you can breach the subject of cousin marriage too. Some you can't. But some westernized ones, the ones that have been in the U.S., they tend to be a little bit more open to not marrying cousins, because it's like not a commandment, but it says in the Quran that it's the most favorite thing you could do is marry your cousin. So again, a lot of Muslims take that literally. Same thing with the child marriage. So yeah, I think again, bad people choose to focus on the bad things. My famous, I don't know if I just say Muslims are good people despite Islam. Islam teaches them all these terrible things, and that's universal. Even there's nothing good about Islam. From the top to the bottom, it doesn't. There's nothing good. It doesn't give women rights. There's no equal rights. There's no human rights. Look at every single Islamic country. Nothing good is coming out of there. But it doesn't mean that Muslims are bad people. Does that make sense? Islam is awful. I mean, read the Quran, it's awful. I had to fight to not get hit. And I'm not saying every Muslim husband hits his wife, but there are guidebooks on how one beats one's wife, because you're not supposed to hit them too hard. It's lightly. And it's after you've told them 10 times, depending on the sect, there's different rules, but that's also universal, because it's 434, it's in the Quran. That you admonish them, you don't go to bed with them, and then you hit them. But men that are bad will take that and they will beat the shit out of their wives. And then the wife technically can ask for a divorce. Doesn't always happen. Sharia courts notoriously send beaten women back. But if you were really living according to Islamic law, the woman could get a divorce. And then the I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know. Does that make any sense what I'm saying?
I mean, I think I've followed most of it so far, yeah. I'll go read and research some more stuff. No, it's not good. Just, it gives me more perspective, so.
It's not that... you have to take yourself out of a Western perspective, Western eyes, because Islam is not a race, but it's very much not a Western religion. So, and try to put yourself in the shoes of somebody that's been born and raised in that faith.
Can you speak Arabic? Just curious, you said you were raised in Pakistan?
No, I lived there for a long time. I'm better with Urdu than Arabic. I can read Arabic okay, but and I know the prayers, but yeah.
Gotcha.
It's because that's another thing. A lot of Muslims, especially in like Asia, they're illiterate. So this is another thing that I don't mean illiterate like they can't read, but they don't know Arabic. And the Quran is only in Arabic. You can have it in America, you can get some English translations, but in order to be a proper Muslim, you have to read it in Arabic. And it only counts really. The angels, you have angels that write everything down, and so when there's a lot of silly superstition that goes with it. So you want to do everything according to Sunnah and then some. And so you have to go above and beyond. So you want to please, basically, you just do everything you can to please Allah. So that you make sure that the Quran is read in Arabic, which is why every prayer that you do is in Arabic. If you don't pray in Arabic, it doesn't count. So even as an English speaker, the first thing you do is learn how to pray in Arabic. Gotcha. I taught prayer classes forever to converts. And you feel, I feel like it does them a disservice, because it's not that they're reading the Quran and taking these terrible verses and picking those out. It's their religious leaders. They're going to the mosque and listening to the imams who are telling them these terrible things based on their extreme interpretations. And so, like my family in Pakistan, they're full of villagers. They're not very educated. Half of the family are very poor. The other half are doctors and more educated. And a lot of them had moved to India. So, and those villagers still believed in evil eye and witchcraft, and beat people up for witchcraft, and would kill apostates because they weren't educated. And that's an education huge. But for people, you couldn't argue with them that the Quran was wrong. Does that make sense? Because they wouldn't know. They don't speak Arabic. They didn't read Arabic. The only Arabic that they spoke was the prayers that they had memorized. So they do it to children. I did it to my kids. Starting from the age of 3, you send them to madrasa, and they memorize the Quran. They don't know what they're saying. They memorize it because you have to. So obviously the ones that are very devout are going to know how to read Arabic. But I'm just talking about the general poor people in those countries. They're very poor. Sure. So I think that's a huge problem. Thankfully, that's why there's a big difference between, I think poverty makes a big difference with it, but the American Muslims tend to be better off financially, of course. And they're second generation. The worrying trend for me, I've noticed in Europe, and somewhat in the US too, is that the young are becoming a little bit more extreme. And it's like an infection, because when you get a lot of people together, I became extreme based on, I started studying with some people from the Muslim Brotherhood. And I was just doing, there were special prayer classes because I wanted to learn how to pronounce things perfectly in Arabic, because it's very important, not only reading it, but having your pronunciations perfect, because otherwise your prayer isn't valid. I mean, it counts, it just doesn't count as much. So I just by hanging out with these people for an extended amount of time and their extreme rhetoric, I began repeating the extreme rhetoric and reading the materials they gave me. And I made my ex-husband extreme. He was not. He wasn't even really into the hijab. Like he was like, well, if you want to wear it, that's cool. By the end of it, we had moved. We were in Afghanistan, and I was in niqab, and I was wishing death on the West. And it took 6 months. Like it was insane. Like when I look back on it now, and it's about lack of education, no hope for the future, same thing. But it's not that I was poor. I was just fucking crazy and lost, and I was raised in a cult, and no one taught me critical thinking skills or, how to think for myself, or that as a woman, I could choose anything. That's a big thing. My biggest problem with Islam through all of this is how women are treated throughout the Islamic world, in America, anywhere. As a Muslim woman, you're fucked. Like, it's not right. It's not fair. And I love Muslim feminists that are fighting for women's rights, because fucking heroes, man. It is trying to explain to you what it is like to be a woman in Islam. And I it sounds patronizing to a man, because I circumcised my son. I'm totally against circumcision. I protected him. I didn't protect him. I protected my daughter, and I shouldn't have. I should have protected them both. But I was sexist towards my son. I don't know if that makes any sense. I have a lot of regrets about the way I was angry about the way I was treated in religion.
Sure.
And I didn't think about the way it was going to affect my son. So I'm very careful now about the way I talk about, things like that around them, and to teach them critical thinking skills and the Socratic method. My kids are both amazing. I'm so happy. My daughter told me she would have killed herself. I had plans, like in just a few years, we were going to send her to get married because she was gay. And I said there was something wrong with her, and she wouldn't wear dresses. She didn't like boys. And I said, we have to fix her. She's broken. So we were going to send her to get married. And I woke up and I escaped. I took my kids and I got away. And she says, thank you all the time. And it's really cool, that I have such cool kids. Now I'm bragging. I apologize.
Sure, it's fine. All right. Well, I mean, I've got a lot of things. I'd love to talk to you again. I just kind of want to look up a lot of this, and maybe I'll go and dig into a little bit more of this just so I have more, I guess, prepared. Or I'm going to try to wrap my head around some of the concepts you're talking about. Would you be cool having a conversation at a future date?
No, I think that's a really good idea. I think that way I'm not just like throwing all, like you're right, I'm throwing all this stuff at you and you're just like, I don't know about any of this.
Yeah, that's fine. This is what I like to get a lot of information, and then it's a good launching point for me. So, do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to leave everybody with, or?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, hey, I really appreciate the conversation. Wait, so I'm just curious. I know that you can't speak and I'm not asking for super detail, whatever you're comfortable with. So, what exactly is your? It sounds like you've had quite the journey, through life. Like, so you were born in where were you born?
In Scotland.
Okay, so you were born in Scotland, and then you were radicalized in Pakistan?
I was radicalized in Scotland.
Oh, in Scotland. And then why did you move to Pakistan?
Because that was where my his family are from there. So,
Gotcha.
Well, India and Pakistan, before the partition, they switched. Some family moved to Pakistan. So and it was where we were going to go because it was extreme, and he wanted to go where the action was, and he had family and really bad people, that just did bad things. And, so that's why.
Gotcha.
I didn't have a choice. I had to do what he said. So wherever he said we were going, we had to go. It's just that was the rules.
And then you moved from Pakistan, you went to the United Kingdom?
Well, from Pakistan, I went to Saudi
Arabia.
I went to Saudi a couple times when I misbehaved. He sent me there. It wasn't always bad. I got to stay on the compound. So it was kind of like mini America for part of the time. So that was cool. The rest of the time was not cool. And then we spent time in Qatar. And then, back to the UK to France to India to America.
Gotcha.
Kind of everywhere.
Your American accent is like really good considering all the traveling you've done. Jeez.
I was asking my kids because we had some video from I think 6 years ago. Maybe 6 years ago, and they were laughing because they had said, Mom, your accent's so thick, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have an accent. I sound like a Californian. They're like, no, you had an accent. So I was listening to it, and I do. It's crazy. I think I live in a bubble in Southern California, so I have a very surfer. It's not a Valley Girl thing, but we have a very specific lingo here. So I say rad a lot and like and stupid words. But yeah, I think that it's infectious. And that's the crazy thing too. My ex never lived in America. That's a lie. He lived in America for 3 months at one point. He had a better American accent than I have. He would practice it. He watched Friends like on repeat all the time and would practice his American accent. It was like a source of pride for him. It was the craziest thing. I never met anyone like him that did that, that had to have an American accent.
Gotcha. Do you know any other languages, or did you have to speak another language? And I don't know what they speak in Scotland or Pakistan or anything.
Oh no, I just know they just speak English. There's some Gaelic in Scotland, but Urdu, I'm pretty good with Urdu. It depends on Arabic. I could impress people by like saying something to do with prayers, like in the intro to the prayers, you say "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." So I could do that and make people think that I'm really cool, like, because it sounds awesome. But I mean, that would be a lie. Because it's just the prayers. You have to memorize it. So I'm not bilingual, not very much. Just a little bit of Urdu and some Arabic.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, I really appreciate the conversation. I'll message you at a future date. We can chat again when I look more into this, and then I'll have some more questions for you, if that's cool.
Sure, yeah. Sounds good.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot.
All right. No problem. Bye.
All right. The anecdotes. I'm not sure. Well, what do you think about, like, like this, what about like this polling information? Well, you see, all Muslims lie. Oh. Well, what about like this thing? Well, I live there and I saw somebody get killed. Where are my Islam experts? I want to hear what. So I am having a hard time wrapping my head around hadith not being interpretations of the Quran. I'm having a really hard time understanding that. There were a couple people in chat that were saying she was saying things that were really wrong. I'll drag in this guy first. Are we going to play the socialism game where every Muslim thinks that everybody else is wrong, and then we're going to do this for a while? Or what's up, buddy? You're
Hello?
here. You're here.
Oh, hey. Let me mute the chat, sorry.
Okay. Speak Arabic. Prove your worth.
I'm not that kind of Muslim. I mean,
Oh
I'm
my
not a Muslim.
fucking god. Are you a
I'm
Brit
Turkish.
bonger? Oh, Turkish.
Born and raised.
Your dude came over to our country and fucked up some of our people. Are you going to apologize for that?
Born in
Which
Ireland,
one?
lived in the Middle East.
Erdogan or whatever?
Managed to pick up a perfect
I mean, they
SoCal
deserve it,
accent
so.
and speech pattern
Wow,
later
fuck you,
in
dude.
life.
All right, let's go. What do you got?
Sure.
You were just when by the way, it's 3:30 a.m. I'm kind of autistic right now,
That's
so
fine. You stay awake
if I
late
fuck up too
looking
much.
for Kurds outside your window to see if they're coming to fuck your shit up? Where do you live in Turkey? What part?
Westmost.
Oh, okay. You don't have to worry about the Kurdish dudes then. Never mind. All right. I'm sorry.
I mean,
go ahead. Hit
yeah,
me up with
yeah,
that.
let's just-
Hit me up with those Islam logic bombs. Go for it.
So, everything she said could be possible with a certain kind of life experience. I'm not doubting her experiences. However, I think everything she said is limited, shaped by a single life. Sorry, I'm too much rambling.
That's okay.
Everything she said is only a certain part of the story. Like she talked about all these super like I don't want to say extremist, but like super religious societies where religion is the law, and that's just not the same everywhere. I mean, Turkey. I have a map of all the Islamic countries. I can count like 1, 2, 3,
Should
4,
be
5, 6.
careful with accenting
Turkey,
things.
Azerbaijan,
They're
Kazakhstan,
most
Uzbekistan,
probably more biased towards
Turkmenistan.
their former
Like,
group than
these
other
countries,
people.
some of them due to secular tradition, some of them due to Soviet tradition. They're super secular countries where, I mean, being religious either got you in trouble or gets you in trouble. And yeah, like, and these countries do not speak Arabic. The literality of Quran doesn't really exist here. Like she said, every word of Quran is perfect and everybody must believe in it. That's true in Turkey. Like if you talk to a Muslim, he would repeat it. However, nobody reads the fucking Quran. Nobody knows what it says. So
you rely on your hadiths, or? So do you rely?
Everybody just goes to a mosque and there's tradition, and if you have some question, you just ask some imam.
Okay, so
Like,
what you just said there, that sounds to me like Christianity. Very few Christians read the Bible cover to cover, and when you ask them, what is your moral teaching on something, very rarely do they say, well, in the book of John, chapter 14, it's more like, well, I go to this parish, and, this is what we believe here, because that's what the priest teaches every week. Yeah.
I fully agree with your view on Christianity. However, I think I would disagree on your views about Islam in West, but we can talk about that later.
Sure.
I want to get the parts her view limited her clear. So her super literal, where every single Muslim believes super literally in every single whatever, doesn't really exist in all parts of the world. Maybe it does exist in some. I can't really speak for much, but like Levantines, Turks. I guess you always mention Indonesians, Albanians, Bosnians. These people are not super literal fanatical people. Like, I mean, you can find them. There are jihadis who go to Syria from all these societies, but generally, I mean, do you agree?
Wait, do I agree that they're Muslim?
I mean,
or that they don't take it literally? Or?
Yeah, like, do you have a problem with anything I said? Or
well, I mean, no, you're the expert. I don't know what their interpretation of the Quran is like. I've never been to these countries. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just a random dude. I'm not a super expert, but I know these for a fact, and I think I can back these up with stats or examples.
Do you agree with or can you help clarify the trouble that I had understanding that it sounds to me like hadiths are guides for how to interpret the Quran or how to implement the teachings of the Quran in your daily life. Is this not true, or can you explain that or elaborate on that some?
Could you repeat that, please? Somebody just messaged me, sorry.
So one of the big disagreements we had is that she believes that the Quran is a literal thing that every single Muslim will agree with, that every Muslim will say the Quran is written like this and can only be interpreted one way. But it sounds like the existence of hadiths is kind of like counter to that. Is that not true, or...?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I'm an atheist, so I do not...
You're not going to get killed or some shit for something you say on my stream, right? I don't know how crazy...
No. I mean, not in Turkey.
Okay.
But I would rather not give any personal information.
Yeah, that's okay.
But that's for non-religious reasons.
Okay.
Anyways, for hadith, like, even without hadith, like, I see people, even on the, like, national... programming on TV talking about interpretations of Quran, like, and this isn't some random radical guy. This is like some guy who has millions of religious followers. I mean, maybe she lives in as I said, these are my experiences and what I can see. But interpretations definitely exist, and existence of sects, I think, speak for existence of them. I think, like, otherwise they would all believe in the same thing. And even without hadith, that this came to my mind. I really wanted to mention, even without hadith, like, as I said, people all around me are secular Muslims, and when you confront them with this conflicts with your beliefs, they just say, oh, it's meant differently or whatever. So, like, people even themselves try to justify it by saying, this is my interpretation. And if you live somewhere remotely secular, you're not going to be punished or killed for this.
Sure. So I guess, like, my final question is, do you feel like given sufficient opportunity with the dissemination of, that if Western culture can influence Muslims enough in different parts of the world that Muslims, even being under the religion of Islam, can start to become more Western. So, like, I always point to, like, Muslims. How do you pronounce it? Is it Muslim or Muslim? What's the correct way to say it?
I mean, in Turkish it's Müslüman. Just Müslüman. But everything in English you just import from Arabs, which I hate you for.
Okay.
You just say Muslim. I don't know.
So is it Muslim? What makes me sound more intelligent, Muslim or Muslim?
You can say Müslüman.
Muslimam? Okay.
Nah.
Islamic people. Do you think it's
just
possible?
Say Muslim, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Do you think that Muslim people can be brought in under Western values and still maintain their Islamic whatever? Like Christians have kind of been brought into, like, Western values, but still kind of call themselves Christians, even though they're really not.
Yeah, it's just that they're not Christians, and I think for people to be civilized, I think they have to lose their religion, basically, even though they might want to call themselves. I think there's a big problem of like relativity. If you're living in California or whatever, and everybody around you is living relatively secular lives, there is no big difference between being an atheist or being a Christian who's not. Who's a Sweetwater? Let's call. We call them. I don't want to say we. I call them Sweetwater Muslims or Sweetwater Christians, as somebody who says they believe in it, but do not adhere to most like hardcore stuff about the religion.
And I can understand that. I feel that way about a lot of Christians in the United States, and even Christians. That's always been my argument, that like Christianity hasn't really undergone a reformation, but Christians are just being less Christian. But
Also,
they kind of lie about it.
Sorry about interrupting. Please call somebody out when they say reformation, because that's fucking retarded. Reformation wasn't about making Christianity more like palatable or moderate or whatever. Reformed Christians were the most fucking insane and most fucking radical motherfuckers out there.
Sure, and I always get here because the Reformation. Oh god, my history is so bad. But wasn't this literally like in the 1700s?
No, it's 14 to 15.
Was it that? Oh, was it that long ago?
Yeah, and
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
They fought insane fucking wars for this. They killed each other like motherfuckers for this,
or even things like Christians like burning people alive for being witches and shit. Like this all happened after the Reformation. I always get really irritated when people bring up like the Reformation, because it's like nobody wants Christianity from the 17 or 1800s as today. Like that's really fucking stupid.
And what changed the Western world wasn't the Reformation, but was Enlightenment, and Enlightenment itself is pushing away from religious values.
Yeah. Which is where wait, was the Enlightenment 1700s?
Yeah, around.
Okay, because a lot of the founding fathers kind of fell into that Enlightenment thing. That's where the deism or whatever, deism, that kind of belief. Yeah, moving away from hardcore fundamentalist religious thought. Okay, cool.
Please call some I hear this a lot, especially from like people arguing on the internet. Please call somebody out when they say Reformation, because they were even more radical.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So, if you want to ask anything else, I specifically wanted to talk about Muslims coming to America and whatever.
Wait, did you want to talk more about that, or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go for it. Hit me up.
So, sorry, let me get your breath. Is when people mention like these Muslims are radical, these people are fucking barbaric or whatever, you go to mention like we have these insane Christians in Deep South or whatever, and the first thing that comes into my mind is, when you specifically have a problem with religious people, why do you want more religious people in your country?
Will you be asking me that?
Yeah.
So I guess like I don't. But under U.S. Constitution, I don't believe that discriminating against somebody because of their personal religious belief is okay. And I would hope, because it's embarrassing to admit it, but I am a believer in the marketplace of ideas. I would hope that religious people would come to the West. They would say that like, hey, under secular lifestyles, life is way better. That women would be like, okay, well, I actually don't want to be locked in my fucking house all day, and I don't want to have to wear 5 pounds of clothing just to walk outside my door. That I would hope that after being exposed to Western values after a certain amount of time, people would kind of integrate into a more secular culture, would be my hope. So while like, would I want 1 million Muslims to come to the country and remain Muslim forever? Absolutely not. But would I want 1 million immigrants to come to the country that could build it economically, and then hope that in the future they integrate into a more secular society? Absolutely yes. Yeah. Okay,
but everything you've mentioned involves these people becoming more secular people, and when these people come and American leftists or like Western leftists fight for their religious rights, it really fucking like sickens me, basically, literally sickens me.
Well, so like the thing is that like there's a distinction that has to be made here, and we kind of make this in
Muslim people and Islamic religion,
and that's a really hard distinction for a lot of people to understand. And I understand why people there might legitimately be fucking idiots on the left that try to defend Islam as a religion. That might be true.
Okay,
but you can say, like, I think you can say that like Muslims are good people that do what they want, or that do things out of love, that can be brought into a secular world, while also saying that, well, Islam as a religion is pretty shit. But you have to be careful, because a lot of the people that call it Islam are literally just shitting on all of the people, and like that's it.
Fucking retarded right wingers in America, in the West, and I want to say, like, if I believed every single Muslim was a horrible person, I wouldn't be able to function in society. Basically, 80 to let's just say 80. I'm pulling the number out of my ass, of course, but 80% of people around me are some kind of Muslims. But like today, I got out about 3 beers and like whatever. I live in a secular society myself.
Wait, are
even though
Muslims not allowed to drink alcohol? I don't actually know.
They actually aren't.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, it goes from alcohol being fined in whatever countries to you get lashed for it in Saudi Arabia or whatever.
Sure, I understand you. Hey, you were really close on your Islam. 82% of the population is Islamic. Good job pulling that number out of your ass.
Where? 95
Turkey.
of population. Officially, 99% of the population is Islamic.
Oh,
But,
really?
I mean,
I say, according to the latest sources by Ipsos, in 2016, Islam was the major religion of Turkey.
Islam is the main religion of Turkey, of course. But the thing is, you have your ID card, and your ID card, they just write down whatever your parents' religion was, and just, yeah. So officially, I'm Muslim, even though, and nobody bothers to change it, or I don't think people would change it due to political implications and whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had one point. You mentioned separating people from the religion itself.
Mhm.
So I presume you don't know much about Turkish history or French Revolutionary history.
Very little. Were you guys part of the Ottoman Empire, or am I wrong with that?
We were the main motherfuckers of
the Ottoman, right? And then I know a little bit about like the Armenian genocide and the murdering of all of my Assyrian brothers, because I have an Assyrian guy in the chat. Sorry,
I'm memeing. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So after the collapse, like there's a concept called laicite or laiklik, some kind of secularism.
Mm-hmm.
So it's translates to secularism itself, but as a concept, it's a bit different from American secularism, where you guys just build up all your churches and they can do whatever the fuck they want. I think.
Okay.
You say? So laicite itself is total removal of religion from public life. People can believe whatever the fuck they want at their own time, at their own establishments and whatever, but it cannot exist in public life. So France had total atheism during its revolution. Then they mellowed down to this point, and after the collapse of Ottoman Empire, Turkey during their nation building copied a lot of French nation building, and this is a concept we got from them. And Turkey, one of the reasons it's not an Islamic shithole is because we have established lake culture, I would say, at least.
Established what?
Lake. Let me just send you a link because, I mean, it's pretty hard to give a concept, Sorry. So, would you like me to, explain it more? Sorry if I...
Oh, yeah, this is what somebody in chat was using this term. Okay.
Okay. So, would you like to would you like me to try to explain it more? So, explain to me what you think about when somebody says secular American society.
So this looks like it's pretty similar to the American concept of church and state, where people can have their own churches and they can go do what they want, but the government doesn't officially recognize or support any type of religion.
But the difference is with laicite, that government actively fights against the seeping of religion to politics. There's a very specific divide where the government is against the religion in public life, where you have multiple coups and disenfranchisement of religious people, which I reluctantly support.
Okay. So you're saying that in the United States, this doesn't count because our politicians are actively religious and advocate religious beliefs politically, or what? Oh, wait, somebody's saying that in Turkey you're not, or maybe this isn't in Turkey, I'm saying in France you're not allowed to practice religion publicly?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Oh, okay. This is not at all like the United States then. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah. So I mean,
so it's kind of like masturbating. Like this is like it's religion is an okay thing
you
to do, but you have to do it in your own
by
time.
yourself.
Yeah, and you never do it in public. And you can only be around other people that want to see you masterbate. Or
I mean, of course, in France or in Turkey, this isn't like a fucking rule of nature where people have there are public showings of religion, but I mean, it's a principle and it's something that people try to attain to. And with this system, you can there's a clear separation of person and the harmful ideology you want to avoid, like I don't know, Pastafarianism, whatever.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and due to my background, which I mean, I'm a Turkish I have a very Kemalist family, and
a very what family?
Kemalist, like
Camelist?
You don't really care. Yeah.
Like you guys worship camels, or
no. Mustafa Kemal.
Wait, do you want to type it out for me so I can read it?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
It's all good. You speak more languages than I do. I'm not making fun of your accent. Don't worry.
Do I have much of an accent? Sorry.
No, you don't. I didn't mean that. Sorry. Okay.
It's a concept, and if I talk about this, like we go down another rabbit hole which nobody cares about. Sorry. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Let's say I cannot explain it. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I can read up on it. Do you?
I have a very.
Or go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you finish your thought.
I have a very secular background. My family and my region, basically. So, and it pains me to see Western society, which slowly and painfully pushed away religion, just accept and let religious people do whatever the fuck they want, basically.
Sure, yeah, I would agree that that's really bad shit. I think all religion is the scourge of the opiate of the masses.
Yeah, and especially
Masha Allah, brother Stephen.
People
the tremendous
using
victory
Islamism
for the
or
bazaar of
using
concepts.
that we are brown as a defense, basically. And as a Turkish person, like as a quote brown unquote person, I'm like, I really hate religion, and Islam is included in this, and I think my concerns or my hate couldn't be brushed aside as he just hates brown people. And I think I definitely seen you do this, unfortunately.
Well, I think a lot of it is tied up in racist thought.
A lot of it is tied up, but I don't think you should defend it anyways. I mean, racists drink water, but...
Well, yeah, so I never defend Islam. I've never defended Islam ever. I don't even consider myself an atheist. I'm an anti-theist. I hate religion with a fiery fucking passion.
Yeah.
So I never defend Islam. I usually am just pointing out the hypocrisy of Christians that attack another religion, because their religion is just as retarded as any other one. And I try to advocate for people to not just shit on Muslims, because that doesn't really get us anywhere. It doesn't make anything better.
I agree, but you talked about... in past, I've seen you talk about your actions having consequences, and defending Muslims has the consequence of allowing scholastic religious thought to find space in your societies, which literally sickens me as a person who tries to specifically get away from this kind of society.
So like in the United States, not unfortunately, in the United States, we do that. We have to allow religious thought publicly in society because it's part of the foundation of our country. And then whether or not I personally agree or disagree, you have to allow people to worship religions. Basically... In terms of pragmatic consequence, I would argue that being welcoming to Muslims and then exposing them to Western values and encouraging them to integrate to those Western values by exposing them to Western values, I think that would have a greater path to success than telling all Muslims that they're horrible people and they're shitty fucking people and they just need to convert to atheism or whatever. That I feel like that latter path doesn't have much success.
I think this might seem a little bit extreme, but for the West, this policy I would want to see is, if you're fit for our society, if you're not fit for our society, just fuck off. Because
maybe, but the problem is sorry,
I specifically am a person who is planning on immigrating to the West, to Germany specifically, And I don't want anything to, like, one bit to do with the German Turkish community in Germany.
And I understand that, but like the problem that I have with that, like if we were, let me put it this way, if America was a country of atheists, I would probably be okay with that. With like, listen, if you're coming to the United States, leave that religion shit at the door. Fuck off. Okay, we don't want it here at all. I would. Now there is a lot of philosophical stuff that I would have to think about quite a bit, but I would be okayish with that on the surface. That would be okay with me. The problem that I have though is that if I stand up and I say I don't want fucking Muslims in my country, okay, because Islam is fucking horrible. Keep that shit away. I can't stand up in good faith and say that when I know that a lot of the people joining me in saying that are fucking Christians. That bothers the fuck out of me. That people that will worship their own fucking lunatic god with their own retarded fucking beliefs that are actively destroying my country, which I believe Christians are, for them to stand up and say, we don't want Muslims here, like, that's some, like, fucking school shooting material for me. Like, that's some rage-inducing shit for me. So like, just to reaffirm, I agree that, like, if America was a secular atheist country and somebody wanted to say, you know what? I don't want to let religious people here. I'd be like, you know what? Fucking hell yeah, dude. Fuck that shit. I'm okay with that. But the fact that so many of the people saying keep Islam out are Christians, that bothers me. If that.
Yeah, I see how the hypocrisy bothers you, but putting situation from my viewpoint, like if 1 million Georgians just wanted to immigrate to Turkey, I would honestly say just fuck off, because we have a certain problem and more religious people just affirm the problem. And
well, listen, dude, you just need a few more coups and you'll get it figured out, right?
So,
okay, yeah. How do you like Erdogan or what?
No.
No? Why is he in power? I don't know much about Turkish politics. Why you do this? It seems like you guys do this thing a lot where your military like kind of has to like step in and check your shit.
So, military did that, but it wasn't all the same. So, let me give you like a pro tip, whatever.
Pro tip. Okay, I'm ready. Yeah.
If anybody talks about Islamization of Turkey or whatever and says coups protected Turkish secularity, they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
So then 82 coup, there's a guy called Kenan Evren. Political background, there were a lot of communists back in the day. Turkey being a NATO ally, there were a lot of... do you know what Operation Stay Behind is?
No fucking idea.
Or Operation Gladio is?
Nope.
So, after World War II, during the Cold War, there are CIA, I think, Stay Behind operations where they had people in Italy, in Turkey, and in many countries. Let me just get up. Wikipedia is blocked in Turkey, by the way. How awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
So it sounds like this was the idea that you would leave certain operations behind in countries in case the Warsaw Pact was violated. They'd be ready to like fight back or something to some extent.
No, more like secret agents.
Yeah, sure. Not like armies, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, sorry, it's 4 fucking a.m.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry.
So back in 82, there was a lot of street conflict between fucking fascists, allegedly to provenly helped by the U.S., like the Grey Wolf shit.
Yeah, we do this. We do this. People that we think will represent our interests, we back them in other countries to fuck you guys up so that it helps us.
And communists, like there was street conflict. And so the army said, fuck this shit, and the 82 coup led by Kenan Evren, sorry. Mm-hmm. And what followed is a Turkish Islamic synthesis. I mean, it was a still secular laic society, still laic principles. However, the government, the coup government, used it as a traditional values as a bulwark against communism. They uplifted all of Turkish left, and they crushed the head of Turkish right as well, but not as bad.
Okay.
Basically. So everything that a lot of the things in current Turkish society stems from the reaffirmation of traditional values to fight against communism, basically. So,
Okay.
was that clear? So when people say
Basically,
protected
coups can go both ways, right? That sometimes you can get more radical people in office as a result of a coup, and that it's not necessarily the case that a coup overthrowing a dictator is going to lead to things to be more secular or less fucked or whatever. Is essentially what you're saying, right? Or no? Or I guess like
Kinda.
specifically in Turkey, more recent coups, like the coup in '82.
I mean,
you said
Turkish coups aren't like. I don't think you can extrapolate coups from Turkey to the rest of the world. I don't think that works. And specifically for the last coup attempt, a lot of Westerners say, like, when people talk about Fethullah Gülen in Pennsylvania or whatever, it seems like a conspiracy theory to a lot of Westerners because from outside it sure does look like it. Mm-hmm. However, and I'm speaking like, consider my background. I'm a atheist, very leftmost part of from the very leftmost society, was very against the government.
Gotcha.
There is.
I gotcha. I understand.
There is truth in the government's claims that there was Fethullah Gülen or like some. Do you know what Fetho is? Like,
I have no idea.
Have you ever looked at the news about the last coup?
Yeah, in Turkey, right? In 2016?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about it?
So what do you know about it?
Military tried to stage a coup. It didn't necessarily work out, I guess, and Erdogan retained power.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Who do you think tried to stage the coup?
I don't know. I don't know that deep into Turkish politics. I have no idea.
So,
some people in chat are saying Gulen, but I don't know who that is.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm using you as a relay to all the retarded Westerners I see
Thanks.
saying shit online.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of people say that he just made the coup up by himself and the coup was self-orchestrated.
Okay.
But, so, you know Scientology, of course, right?
Yep.
If somebody's told you that there was a secret cult trying to, how do you like secretly get into places within military and government and whatever, you'd probably call them an idiot.
Well, maybe. I don't know anymore these days.
Yeah, but
did you see what happened with South Korea?
Yeah, that's what I was going to reference.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, a lot of Western people have trouble seeing this, like,
sure,
some cult infiltrating very high places in society. Mm-hmm. And when they say, like, a botched coup, like what the one happened, they say, oh, this must have been orchestrated, but this gets really deep into the Turkish politics.
Are you essentially saying that, like, so, like, the Western view, I think, our Western view of the coup was that this was a coup done by the military to keep your country secular and to keep Erdogan's power in check. But what you're saying is that's bullshit. The coup was staged by people that were just looking to claim power. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, it's deeper than that, but basically, yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm rambling too much.
No, it's okay. I understand.
Also, go ahead.
Why? I'm curious. Why is Erdogan in power? Like, why do you guys like him? It seems like if Turkey is a secular country, is Erdogan a religious extremist, or is that just a bad Western impression I have?
A lot of Westerners says he's an extremist. He's like, the greatest parallel I see is to Putin.
What does that mean?
Like, Russian? Like,
well, no, I know who Putin is, but I mean, like, what do you mean, like, he's like Putin? What do you mean by
he's
that?
a strongman military guy who's using traditional values to keep in power, basically.
Okay, so he kind of skirts that line between traditional values and religious kind of shit?
Yeah, like, do you think Putin is an orthodox fucking crusader trying to claim Holy Land or whatever by jailing the gays and faggots and whatever?
Sure. But no.
I'm sorry, I can't say that.
I understand what you mean.
Like, I think he's basically the same. Like, he's basically doing the same thing. There's no religious... at least I don't think so. Like, he's just a standard strongman pushing people.
Okay.
The best example I can give you is there was an incident between Israel where they sent a flotilla, or like there was a aid flotilla when Israeli troops basically intercepted the ship, killed a few people on the ship, went ape, retarded, and Israel, they weren't unarmed. They were unarmed, by the way. They just had like a sticks and kitchen knives or whatever. And Israeli troops killed a few people. So Turkey was one of the countries with best relations in Israel for a long time. That like flotilla incident fucked up our relations for a long time. Then I think last year or the year before, he just said, "Did I tell them to go?" Like he just cut them loose and fucked them just to repair Islamic relations. Just to repair Israeli relations.
Gotcha. So he's a pretty hardcore memer. Erdogan was also the ruler when you guys, I think, shot down that Russian jet that passed over your airspace heading to northern Syria, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's been the ruler for the past 15 years.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Do you have any final thoughts? Any final memes for the stream?
If you're gonna defend some Muslims online, reconsider it, maybe.
I defend Muslims, but not Islam. Okay, listen. I love all of you people. You're beautiful. You're beautiful people to me. Okay. Listen. I try to focus on shitting on Christians. Okay. Does that make you happier?
I mean, you shitting on Christians, I feel like it empowers fucking retarded Islamists.
Okay. I'll try to shit on Muslims more. I agree that if you watch my Twitter, you might get a warped view that I don't spend enough time shitting on Muslims. So I'll try to bring that more, okay?
I fully agree. Like, and I see retarded people saying retarded shit like whatever enlightened centrists you talk to, where they say this is the word of God to them. They believe it 100%. Like, it's even worse than Christians because they don't even know what their fucking holy book says. Like, I think only 10% of Muslims only read the Turkish version of Quran. Like, it's not literal. They just do whatever their parents did or ask someone. Like, they literally don't know. Sorry, yeah. Sure. If you want to talk about anything else, I think we're done. Sorry I rambled too much.
No, it's all good. I appreciate it. Apparently 11% of American Christians have read the Bible. All of it, so good memes. Okay,
pretty
cool.
comparable, I guess.
Yeah. All right, well, hey, I appreciate the conversation, buddy. Have fun. Stay safe. Rip on. All right, we're getting our Islam education here. All right, this guy is next. Are you here? Hold on one second. I got a lot of people that want to come on and talk about Islam. Islam. Oh, 9% was read it more than once? Oh, shit, sorry. So that would be 20%. Oh, all of it and all of it more than once. Sorry. I don't believe that. 20%? No fucking way. These fuckers lied. I don't believe it. But maybe not. I guess I shouldn't say that. There might be more like... If you're like a Baptist or whatever... You probably have like a higher chance of having read. How many Christian denominations have their own holy book? So I know that Mormons have like the Book of Mormon. Do Baptists have like their own like special edition, like DLC Bible? Or, because Catholics don't have a DLC, it's just the Bible, right? Protestants and Lutherans, do they have like extra bullshit or... Jehovah's Witness? Wait, isn't Jehovah's Witness, like, in Mormons, kind of like a similar thing? Oh, God. Catholics have DLC with the Apocrypha? Wait, what's the Apocrypha? I'm a Catholic and I have no idea what that is. A set of texts included in it, but not in the Hebrew Bible, while Catholic tradition considers the text to be deuterocanonical. Protestants consider them apocryphal. Most Protestant Bibles do not include the books within the Old Testament, but have included them in service. Oh, I'm not sure. Aren't there Gospels? Aren't there apocryphal? I don't know how to pronounce it. I know there are Gospels that didn't make the Bible. That like when everybody got together, and during their agile development, they decided to cut or add certain gospels to the Bible, but they didn't have enough dev time to include everything, that they ended up cutting out a bunch of them because they didn't have the features that they wanted. So we have like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, kind of, which is a separate one from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Oh yeah, these are called apocryphal gospels or whatever, aren't they? Fuck, I mixed all these things up. Gospel? Am I making this up? Fuck, I don't remember what these are called. Oh, New Testament Apocrypha. Apocrypha? What about the Catechism for Catholics, the literal equivalent of the Hadith to the Muslims? Maybe. The Catechism is just supposed to be like the book of rules, right? For Catholics? Isn't that like your rule book? Okay, this guy left, I guess, so. What about this guy? Okay, I'm dragging this guy in next.
Yeah?
Boom! Stop talking to the other guy, now you're talking to me. What's up?
Oh yeah, nice, finally.
Okay, who are you?
Yeah. I'm Mojo. I'm from Germany. I'm a Muslim. My parents are from Tunisia.
Of course you're a Muslim if you're from Germany. All of you fuckers are now.
Yeah.
Got him. No, I'm just kidding. Okay,
No, I
Muslim
was
from
actually
Germany.
born here in Germany.
Do you speak Arabic?
I can answer a lot of your... I speak Arabic, yeah.
Okay.
English is actually my third language, so excuse me if I do some mistakes.
No, that's fine. You sound fine. I'm guessing your primary language is German?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
German, then it's Arabic, and then it's English, and then
Gotcha.
French.
Okay, cool. Wow.
I joined kind of late when I joined when you were talking with the girl. I joined actually when she was talking about gays and stuff,
Okay.
and she said so many things wrong, like that gays actually like get immediately killed, and I don't know, like in Islam, and the ruling is actually that for a homosexual to be killed, there need to be 4 witnesses that witness the act of penetration actually. So, and you can't go into people's houses in Islam and like spy on them if they're actually homosexual or not. So if 2 men walk in the street holding hands, you can't actually prove that they are gay, like only if they actually do the act of penetration in public. So, and if 4 people witness it and testify against it in court, then you actually get executed for being homosexual.
How many times in certain Islamic countries, though, do you ever get people that will fake testimony to get a gay dude killed, like in Saudi Arabia?
I don't actually know, but Saudi Arabia for me isn't an example for a Muslim country.
Well, are all the Gulf states as extreme as Saudi Arabia? All of those Sunni states,
No.
Qatar, UAE?
They're not actually. No, Kuwait is actually pretty secular. I think like 2 weeks ago they came out with a lot of secular laws and stuff.
Mhm.
Qatar is actually a little bit better too, but Saudi Arabia isn't like an example for a good Muslim country, even if they say so themselves.
Gotcha.
And also, like she said, there aren't interpretations for the Quran. There's only one interpretation that's actually wrong. Like they're called tafsirs. The interpretation of the Quran are called tafsirs.
Yeah,
and
she
there are
mentioned
many
that, but
different scholars.
she said that they didn't count as interpretations. I didn't understand
That's
that.
not true. No, I mean there are different scholars that interpret the Quran. Yeah, and there are also different madhabs. I mean, you heard Sunni, Shia, and under the Sunni there are different madhabs.
Uh-huh.
And all of them, like there is, for example, Maliki, which is like most of North Africa is Maliki, and a part of like the Gulf states as well. Then there's Shafi'i, also mostly in the Gulf states. Then there's Hanbali in Turkey and stuff like that, in Bosnia, and so I think in Afghanistan too. And there's Sufi, also like these are the 4 major ones, and they have different rulings, like in their life, for example, what they can do and what not, but they're pretty similar. But that there's only one interpretation of the Quran that's actually not true. And also in the Quran itself, it says that there are verses in the Quran that are ambiguous and there are verses that are unambiguous. So that there are verses that are open to interpretation. But for example, verses that are unambiguous is that God is one in the Quran. It says so that there's nothing that you can change about that. There's nothing that's not open for interpretation. But
That God is one, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry if my connection's
No, that's fine.
right now.
What, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that? That that's not open for interpretation, that God is one? What does that mean?
Because it's a clear statement. you can't interpret it that God is two by that statement. It's clear.
Okay. I'm curious. Can you give it okay, because I really don't know. I know the sects, but I don't know what their differences in beliefs are. What are some fundamental religious disagreements between Sunnis and Shia people?
The most important part about the difference between Sunni and Shia is the following after the Prophet's death, like who was the Caliph, the ordering of the Caliphs.
Okay,
that's a major dispute about.
When you say the Prophet, you're always referring to Muhammad, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then when you say, oh fuck, I have an important phone call to take. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. I'll be done quick.
Yeah, no problem.
You can talk to the stream, okay? Don't convert anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I could explain to him that it's murder. It's a good point. I'm so nervous though. Speaking, never actually debated with anyone really. I talked a little bit with friends, but kind of nervous. Let's hope he doesn't destroy me. Yeah, most of the punishment, if you guys want to talk about the gay punishing thing, most of the punishing in Islam is more like, how do you say in English, to deter people from actually doing the act.
Hey, Destiny,
for example,
stop this proselytizing right now.
Can you do it instead? Theo
sorry.
Goodman.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. You can finish your statement.
Because of that, about the punishing thing, most of the punishment in Islam is more to deter people from actually doing the wrong things. For example, about stealing. I mean, I bet you heard that in Islam, if someone steals something, you chop the hand off, right?
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah. I
mean, first you have to have some basis of something to actually take place. First, it has to be a country, like a Muslim country with Sharia law, and Sharia law is really, really clearly defined. And then also the person that's stealing something, if they stole, I think there are 4 criteria or 5. I can't remember all of them. But if the person stole because they're hungry, the punishment doesn't count. If the person stole because they needed something to survive or something, it doesn't count. Because if someone stole and he was mentally handicapped and doesn't know what he's doing, it doesn't count. The only thing where it does count if someone steals out of greed or something, without a reasoning. If someone, I don't know how to say it in English. Sorry. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah.
I mean, so they're just there to deter people from actually doing crimes and stuff. That's the same thing with the gay thing. You can actually be homosexual in a Sharia law country, in a Muslim country, without getting punished. You can hold hands, like I said, in public, and no one can actually accuse you and say you are homosexual. They can't even get into your home. They can't even look through. There's a hadith, and I can explain what hadiths are more. I think two of your people didn't really explain that well. Mm-hmm. But there are hadiths that actually forbid a person to look through the keyhole in a door. What do you call it? Where you put in the key?
Yeah, keyhole.
Yeah, you can't actually look into a room there. It's forbidden to spy on people. So you would never actually know if someone's homosexual unless they actually want the public to know and actually do the act in public. So to punish someone for homosexuality, and it's nearly impossible. You know what I mean?
How do people end up getting stoned to death and shit, or thrown off roofs in those kinds of societies?
In my opinion, like I said, that's wrong. That should never happen, actually.
Well, but
I'm pretty sure that,
right?
Yeah, it does, but not according to what Islam really is. I mean, you need to. I mean, you said it yourself. You need to really distinguish what Muslims do and what Islam actually teaches. There's a big difference.
I understand.
And I can actually tell you what hadiths are. I think you struggled with that a little bit. You didn't get a real explanation. Hadiths are actually everything what the Prophet did and what he said and what he recommended his followers to do. That's three things are hadith. And the girl also said that they are written 100 and 200 years later after he died, and they got only written down to suit some laws or something from the people at that time. It's actually something you can research if you want. It's called the science of hadith. That every hadith, which are basically you can translate as statements or sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. Mm-hmm. There are so high criteria for something actually to be authentic. There are major books like Bukhari, for example, and Muslim. There's a person called Muslim, and who else? But these two are the major ones in Sunni Islam, that they're compendiums of hadiths, you can say. And the criteria for a hadith to be entered into that is like really, really, really high. Like, I'm sorry, apparently my connection is laggy or something.
No, I think it was me for a second. I can hear you fine.
Yeah. So they're really high criteria. For example, the chain of narration needs to be like flawless. The person of Bukhari, for example, is like the highest, like he has the hardest criteria for a hadith to enter like into his companion. It's like it's true that it was like 200 years after the Prophet died, but the chains were like so hard to get into the book that he like the companion. For example, there needs to be a narration directly from the Prophet directly to the time of Bukhari right there, and from multiple people. Like some for example, the person said, I heard this and this from my father, which heard it from this and this person, which was there when the Prophet said it. And there needs to be a specific amount of people that heard the same saying, and they also did research, like nearly a biography of every person in that chain. Like they looked, was the person trustful? Was the person known for lying? Mm-hmm. And stuff like that. There was every person in that chain of narration was it was clear that what was narrated was actually from the Prophet, and there was multiple people. And also, if for example 4 people narrated something and they were all known as trustworthy, and a fifth person narrated the same thing but was known as a liar, then the hadith would lose its authenticity.
Sure.
So it was really, really hard. So you can actually be pretty certain that everything in Bukhari, in the hadith companion, is actually sayings from the Prophet and not from some people that to suit laws or to suit their needs or something.
Gotcha. Okay, was there anything else she said that you disagree with or that you think was wrong?
I tuned it pretty late, but yeah, also about killing apostates from Islam. It looks like my connection is a little bit laggy. I'm sorry if that's the case. Yeah, about apostates. So if someone leaves Islam, under my understanding and under most Muslim Sunni understanding, there's actually no punishment. The only thing is at that time of the Prophet Muhammad, where the ayah came down, where the verse came down about apostates, about leaving Islam, or about the punishment, was at the time where being was something identical to being how do I say it? It was like a group of people, and if you leave that group of people, it was the same as treason. Like in America and in Germany, 100 years ago, if someone did treason to a state, what was the punishment there? It was death, right?
Yeah.
High treason, or what you call it? I forget. Mm-hmm. It was the same thing. It was like an identity. Like it was a small group of people where the verse came down, and you also have to look at stuff like that. Where every time a verse comes down, it comes with a different reasoning, and you have to look at what time did it came down and what was the circumstances of the Prophet at the time where the verse came down. Mm-hmm. So you need to look at it at a bigger picture, and also the Quran can never be looked at alone. At least the understanding. There's a small group of people who call themselves the Quranists, I think. They only take the Quran literally and they don't look at anything else. They say the Quran is enough. We got everything we have there from the Quran, but that's actually not the case. For example, in the Quran, it tells you to pray, but it doesn't tell you how to pray. So it doesn't show you the movements that the Muslims do, like what do you need to say when you stand up, when you bow down and stuff. It doesn't say that in the Quran. So you don't actually know how to pray if you only read the Quran. You need to follow the hadith where it says how to pray and what the movements are. So you need to look at them together.
Gotcha.
It's like the Quran is the car and the Prophet is like the driver. You can't have one without the other. It's like he's like the manual to how to use the Quran correctly. So that's why hadith are actually really, really important.
Gotcha. And so basically you have the Quran, which makes you or Muslim, and then the hadith you follow determines your sect, or the series of hadiths you follow determines what sect you're in? Is that accurate or no?
I mean, all Muslims follow the Quran, that's correct. And that's also correct that not all Muslims follow all hadiths. I mean, Shias, for example, follow, most of the hadiths they don't follow. nearly like 99% of the hadiths they don't follow. For example, all Sunni Muslims follow the hadiths of Bukhari and Muslim, for example, like they are authentic. There is no authenticity. But Shias, I don't know. I don't really know much about Shias, honestly. But yeah, I guess that's kind of true. But the Quran is for every Muslim is the same. Like no matter Shia, Sunni, or it's the same. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other things you want to bring up?
I forgot. There was something else that she said. I forgot what it was. Yeah. About hitting your wife, right?
Oh yeah.
She was. I mean, she said some things that are wrong, but also some things that are right. Like about hitting your wife. She's right that there are guidelines. In the Quran, it says you hit your wife. That's actually correct. Like I'm not gonna lie, but you have to, like I said, to look at what did the Prophet do. And most scholars, like you can't really interpret it as a normal person that reads the Quran once. You can't really interpret the Quran how you want. Like the scholars, like they sit all their life and make research and look into the life of the Prophet, and their opinion matters more than some random girl on the internet who's an ex-Muslim and says, yeah, that's the case, actually. So you have to look at the Prophet, what he did. And most scholars say that the hitting of the wife is actually a symbolic act, because the Prophet himself said that there's something called a miswak, which is like an ancient toothbrush, you can say. It's like a really, really small stick. It's really thin. It's like a pencil or something. And he said you can tap your wife with it. That's a symbolic act. That's the limit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, there's divorce. So actually hitting your wife, because the Prophet never raised his hand against his wife. He never actually hit his wives any time. So if you read the Quran and then compare it to the life of the Prophet, you actually see that you can actually not hit your wife, and you cannot cause harm to anyone, because that's actually also a hadith that you cannot cause harm to any person.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else?
I mean, I don't know. Don't you have any questions about Islam or something that I can maybe help you with this?
Well, no. I mean, basically, it sounds to me like every time I have to be careful I'm not shopping for opinions that agree with me, but every time I talk to somebody that seems fairly knowledgeable in Islam, it just seems like it seems very similar to Christianity, that you have a book that has very hardcore guidelines, but a multitude of people have a multitude of different interpretations of that book, that there are a lot of people that claim to follow that book that are more secular. There are other people that are far more fundamentalist that claim to follow the same book, who are way more radicalized. I mean, it just seems pretty similar to how Christianity plays out, I guess, is how I see it. Do you disagree with that interpretation? Do you think I'm wrong there, or?
I disagree with it a little bit, I think. Because the Quran actually, also someone said about Reformation, right? That you need to reform the Quran and stuff. The Quran actually, from a Muslim perspective, from an Islamic perspective, was sent to all people and to all times. So it's the book that it's actually timeless, like considered from an Islamic perspective. So the rulings in there and then everything in there is actually, yeah.
I don't agree with this differentiation, and maybe this is a bad religious or theological understanding of my point of view. People are big to point this out, that the Bible was written by people, and the Quran is like the direct word of God. I mean, I feel like that distinction is arbitrary. At least in Catholicism, we believe in something called divine inspiration, where the idea is that while a person was writing, it was written by a human. They were divinely inspired by God Himself to write infallibly on matters of church doctrine. So I guess I don't see a huge differentiation there. It's not like a divinely inspired book can have incorrect information. I've never heard somebody make that argument before.
I can counter that statement actually, because Muslims actually believe that parts of the Bible are actually like true, and that they are like inspired, like they are from God, you can say. But that there's corruption in the Bible, and that's why the Quran actually there. Because it's actually a fact that some verses in the Bible got added later on. For example, there's a verse like, what was it, John 4:17, or I don't know, something like that. It was in the King James Bible. It was added in the the 14th century or something, and 300 years later they realized, when they found old manuscripts and stuff, that it wasn't there. So they knew it was a fabrication and it was added. It was like about the Trinity, because the Trinity isn't anywhere in the Bible, right?
Yeah, so this is kind of weird. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are supposedly based on something called the Q document, because all of them share such similarities that the theory, I think, was that, unless there's been new research on this, that Matthew, Mark, and Luke are all based on some supposed document that's called the Q document that isn't found, and then John was supposedly based on some other document. So I guess I understand that there might be differences between John and the other three Gospels. If you read John, it's much more different than the other three Gospels for sure. But I've never heard of people, like, they don't just, like, add things because they believe new things, right? Isn't it more like, well, we found something, like, that doesn't speak to the integrity of the book itself, does it?
For example, about the adding part in the Bible, I guess it was because people actually started to doubt. It was after the Renaissance, or in the time of the Renaissance, right? The Enlightenment, and people never found anywhere anything about the Trinity. So I guess the church thought they had to add it. Like, I don't know.
Weird. The Trinity is only in John? Is that actually true? I didn't know that.
The concept, like, you can argue that the concept theoretically of the Trinity is somewhere else in the Bible, but there's actually not.
Hold on, real fast. Your internet is lagging really bad. 1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, fuck.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Like I said, there's actually not a single verse in the Bible that one verse that tells you about the Trinity. You can argue that the concept is there if you, like, read this verse and that verse.
Sure, but actually elaborating on the exact concept is something that came from...
Yeah. That's something that's later. It was, like, I think in the 4th century, it was in the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah, that sounds like one of the Bible councils, yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that, where they decided it was 3 in 1 and something like that. And also, like, why we believe stuff of the Bible is true, and also of the Torah, the holy book of the Jews, is because the message of God is the same. It makes sense, right? Like, it's logical that a God that is, like, it's timeless, like, outside of this realm, outside of this reality, like, the objective morality doesn't change, or the laws shouldn't change. That's why there's also so much similarities between Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
Gotcha.
Like, I mean, there's one side of ruling, and it is sent down. If it gets corrupted by people or changed by people, it has to be sent another time. And the Quran is the final message. Like, that's our perspective of the Muslims, which cannot be changed, which is timeless, and it lasts until the day of judgment. At least it lasts until the end of times.
Sure. Okay, yeah. Is there anything else that you disagree with me on, or anything that I've said that...
I mean, I want to know why you hate religion. Like, you always say, like, you hate religion, you hate religion. I actually don't know why. I have to add that I'm not really that long here. Like,
are you?
I don't know.
Are you actually religious?
Yeah, I am.
So I have two major problems with religion. One is philosophical, and the other is scientific, I guess. I don't know. Maybe these are both philosophical. So I don't like the truth claims made by religion. The belief in a higher power, I believe, is very misguided. I'm sure you've heard a lot of edgy atheist arguments for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that... Yeah, basically the existence of any higher power is something that I find incredibly ridiculous. And then the philosophical implication of extrapolating morality from old books is just nothing. I have no interest in that. That if I were to build a society and try to build law off of some morality, I would want to reason out what I think morality is that would best serve values in society that I find important, rather than trying to extrapolate values and then eventually law from a book that said things a long time ago. I just don't see any value in that.
Yeah. Let's get to the first point first, I guess, about the one, like, a higher being.
Okay. If we're moving into, like, debatey territory, if I say anything that you disagree with, just interrupt me immediately and we can talk about that point. Okay.
Like, I'm really an amateur about debating.
Yeah,
I've never really debated, so I'm probably really bad at this. But,
no, it's okay.
Like, I want to say, like, I had a lot of doubts about religion and stuff like that. So I did a lot of thinking when I was, like, it was like 3 years ago or something, and I came to the conclusion that it's actually rational to believe in God, because I mean, you can go like to the beginning of the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have at some point you have to have an uncaused cause, right?
No.
Why not?
Well, so we can actually play this out syllogistically. So let me organize your argument. You can tell me if I agree or disagree. Okay. So the problem is ultimately your argument will become recursive. But so you would say that everything had a beginning or a creator, or rather everything had a creator, right? And then every complicated thing had a creator. And then number two,
everything
is,
in this universe, as we know,
everything in this universe,
we know of nothing that.
Yeah. So every complicated system or whatever had a creator. The universe is a very complicated, intricate system, and then therefore the universe was created by something. Is essentially what you're saying, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So the problem is then I would plug your God, Allah, I would plug him into the equation, and I would go, well, then how can you say that Allah is infinite? Why wasn't Allah created by something else?
Because there has to be something. Because if he was created by something else, what do you call it? That's infinite regression or something like that.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the argument, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have at some point for this universe to exist. Because let's go back a little bit. Do you agree that nothing come out of nothing?
I can't agree with that. No, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Because how did the universe begin? I'm not sure.
Can you give me any example of something in the universe which came spontaneously out of nothing, or like even
no, of course not. No, I agree with modern physics. I don't think anything comes from nothing. No.
So like if we observe this universe, there's nothing in our universe, in our world, that like comes out of nothing. And also like people like Lawrence Krauss, he's a famous atheist and a scientist. He says there's actually a possibility of like the universe coming out of nothing, but his nothing is not actually nothing. His nothing is actually quantum fluctuations and something like that. I don't know. I'm not really like, good at this field, but he says there is something. So even in his opinion, truly nothing like cannot bring forth anything. So that's like a big point. So
sure, but you would argue that your God was brought forth by nothing, no?
No, he's always existent. So he's outside of this realm of reality.
Yeah. So then why can't I say, well, the universe has always existed?
Because nothing in this universe reflects that, and we know that the universe had a beginning.
Well, but we don't.
We know that. We know that.
We know that the Big Bang existed, but we don't know what we don't. Well, we don't even really know. That like all of our evidence points to that, but we don't know what existed before the Big Bang. There could have been another universe here.
Yeah, but the universe itself, like, okay, you can argue that, I guess, okay, that the universe itself is infinite, and that it has always existed, but then you have to say like, what was the reasoning, like, does it have intelligence, or does it have a will to do that stuff? Like,
no, but I don't think you need to show intelligence or wisdom in order to show that something exists. I would argue that things like evolution or the rotation of the planets can exist without any type of intelligence behind it.
But do you think this universe is designed or not? Do you think you see like?
Say, so I'm being very careful semantically. When you say designed, I mean the universe has a design, but was it designed by a creator? I would say there's no evidence for that, no.
In my opinion, there is, because if mathematically speaking, right, if the values in the creation of the universe were like a tiny bit off, it wouldn't be like it is today, like.
So this is kind of like, this is like a big problem with, I want to say this is putting the cart before the horse. So I've heard this before. Somebody would say that like, if the planet Earth was, just like 100,000 miles in either direction, life as we know it wouldn't exist. That's absolutely true, but life exists. It's the planet Earth isn't where it is so that life can exist on Earth as it does today. Rather, life on Earth exists today as it does because the planet is where it's at. We don't know this, but it's entirely possible that if Earth was in a different spot, that life could have existed in another manner. That it could happen. Maybe we can't fathom it or conceive it, right now, but it could have happened in another way, possibly. Or there could be no life at all. Like, it is possible that we just wound up here by chance. But the idea that complex design can emerge from physical properties, I don't think necessitates the belief that somebody guided that process. For instance, natural selection or evolution is something that we can observe. That is an incredibly complicated process, but we can watch that process happen through totally natural processes, through RNA transcription and mutation and all of that. We can watch that happening without any type of creator, guiding that process at all.
Yeah. By the way, Muslims don't disagree with evolution on most parts.
Basically, just pointing back to that first argument, just so before we walk off into, I believe it's called the teleological argument. All I'm trying to display is that everything that you can use to defend the existence of your God, I can use to defend the existence of the universe, it's to play the recursion game. So whereas you might say, you say God created the universe, and I go, well, okay, well, I say that the universe is always there, is infinite, because you say that your God is infinite. Well, now we're kind of in the same boat. You don't really argue in favor of your God being infinite, saying the universe can be infinite.
We have like not a single example of something in this universe which is how do I say? Like my arguments are pretty bad in English, and I really never.
No, that's okay. I understand.
I never debate, so I'm sorry.
You don't have an example of something emerging from nothing?
Yeah, in this universe.
Sure,
like,
but
everything,
I mean,
everything in this universe is dependent on something else. Like nothing is independent in this universe.
Yeah, causality, and that's a big mystery. I can't sit here and pretend to tell you the solution to the creation of the universe. I just think it's a little disingenuous to say, well, since we don't have the answer to that, therefore God. I mean, like just because
no, that's not what I'm saying. I mean. Because the universe can be dependent on itself to just infinitely create and recreate itself, like go back into like a big crunch, or what it's called scientifically, where it's imploding in itself and then exploding again. It can't work like that, right?
Well, we don't think so because redshift shows that the universe is accelerating. What you're talking about was like the oscillating universe theory, which I don't think anybody believes anymore. Yeah, I mean, like.
No. Talking about when the universe, like about the end of the universe, there's like different theories, right?
Well, some people believe so. There's something called
imploding.
Yeah, there's something called, I think, the oscillating universe theory, where the idea is that once it's gone out to its maximal length, it all kind of condenses again into like a single thing, a single point in space, and then another Big Bang happens and it repeats that pattern or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't think physicists believe that, because we're accelerating away from everything faster and faster, and there's no reason to believe it'll come back. I think that's the whole redshift thing. I think. But I guess all I'm trying to say is that, like, I notice this, like, with a lot of religious arguments that it seems like they try to get into like these very niche areas where science doesn't necessarily have an answer. Like, I can't tell you the beginning of the universe, but even if there was, like, it's just, I don't know if I'm comfortable with the statement. You can't say that the universe is infinite because then it can't be self-contained. Something outside should have started that. I don't know if that statement is true. And even if I say that statement is true, whatever God you invent to start the universe must be subject to the same rules. Otherwise, you're recursively in the same problem. Like, okay, well, you're
no,
God.
actually must not. That in my model, there has to be an entity, or has to be something that is like infinite, like always there. I mean, in your case, it's the universe itself. In my case, it's God outside of the universe. So
yeah, but I'm just saying that neither of us can argue stronger. Like I claim, okay, well, I say that the universe always was, that time didn't begin until the universe began, and the universe always has been. And then you would say, well, you would just say the same thing for God, but you can't tell me why your explanation is any more correct than mine, right?
Yeah. Right now I can't. I need to do some more thinking about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the truth claims. And then also, like, fuck, I'm not trying to turn you into an atheist or whatever, but like, I guess the biggest problem that I have is that when people talk about divine powers, you're talking about something that should be ever-present, omnipresent, omniscient in every conceivable way. A godlike figure should have all of these properties. Why is it so hard to see anything of that in daily life? Why would something that powerful and ever-present not be so absent from everything we do?
So you want like to see God?
Yeah.
Or that he directly speaks to you?
Or not even that, but just like for instance, every single thing that was ever described or ascribed to God, every single thing that was ever explained by a divine power that we've researched has always turned out to be not that. Never have we researched something and it's like, okay, well, we finally got our research here. This is actually just a work of God. It's always been more like, well, this is a cellular process, this is a biological, medical thing. Like, it's always been that. Why have we never discovered anything where it's like, oh, this is God?
In my opinion, there's actually a lot of ways where like God shows us miracles, or like, for example, for me, it's the Quran. Like, if you read it, that's like the way that God talks to you. Like the things you're searching for or something, that's you find there. Like a lot of scientific miracles, for example, in the Quran. that couldn't be known at that time. Like even,
but like, do you ever find it strange that scientific miracles seemed like they decreased a hell of a lot when everybody had cell phones to record things? Like it seems like miracles were a lot more common back before we had recording devices. You know?
No, I'm not meaning like miracles, like a dead person comes back to life. Let's explain it that way. The prophets came with different miracles for people at their time, and since the Prophet Muhammad is like the last prophet and the prophet meant for all people at all times, his miracle needs to be something everlasting, right? Something for every person to see, to believe. Like, so the miracle of Moses was his splitting the sea and stuff. Miracle of Jesus was healing people.
Well, for Moses it was the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, to be fair. But
yeah, but splitting the sea, right? And for Jesus it was raising the dead, and for Muhammad it's the Quran. Like his miracle is actually the book, and yeah. That's everlasting, and everyone can read it themselves and see.
I guess like it would have been really cool if like there was like, you know, like the book of, you know, in the book of John, like chapter 27, there was like the periodic table of elements where God was like, hey, here's some shit I'm going to reveal to you that's like a really important scientific truth, like go with it. Like there's nothing like that in the Bible. Or like, well, you know, like in the book of Genesis, God mentions trisomy, you know, 41 as like a thing, or 20, whatever, that causes Down syndrome. It's like, well, okay, well, this is never...
Yeah, okay. The thing is, though, but the Quran is actually not a scientific book. It has scientific miracles, but it's not meant to be like a scientific book. You can find scientific stuff there, but it's not meant to that. It's meant as a guidance for people to live, how to live their lives, what to do, what not to do, and prepare them for the rest of the end times, for the day of judgment.
Sure.
That's the main reasoning of the book, not to like, I don't know, like. Like you said, like write down the periodic table or something, because that's even that there are measurements of people. Like we measured, like they're not like objectively true things, right? Like we give them numbers, and we like our metric system, for example, we decide what 1 meter is. It's not an objective thing; it's subjective. So and God is objective, right? So yeah.
You sure?
I don't know. My arguments are pretty bad. I'm sorry.
No, it's I mean, it's really hard. If you had like the absolute arguments for, you know, for Allah, I would be a Muslim.
I mean, if you talk someone with like more knowledge than me, like I never really debated with someone, but there are a lot of people I think that have really, really great arguments that you could talk to.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever find one of these people and they want to shoot me an email, I'd love to debate a religious scholar. I mean, if for no reason,
a scholar would be like, yeah. I mean, it's really probably hard to contact them or something.
So I guess like, this is a two-parter. In the first one, I don't think there is sufficient logical argument to be made for the existence of a higher power for the first part, which is what we kind of talk about. If I concede that ground to you and I say, okay, well, maybe there was some higher power, the second part we move on to becomes the ethics philosophical part, where even if we say there is evidence for a higher power, how could you possibly choose which one is correct? Like, why do you think Allah is correct, but Yahweh is incorrect, or something like that?
That's actually a really good question. I guess you have to look what each religion, or I mean, every religion claims to be the only true religion, right? That everything else is wrong. That is the only true way to save you, or to I don't know. I guess you actually have just to look through them, like I did when I was like in a period of doubt. Like I looked at everything.
But are you weighting scientific evidence, or just what sounds the best to you?
I'm valuing scientific evidence. I'm valuing like truth, how reliable the sources are, what it actually tells me. And for me, Islam is the thing that makes the most sense.
And do you think that you could get into an arena with Christians and Jews, and you could logically argue the existence, like, this is why the Torah is wrong, this is why the Bible is wrong, and this is why the Quran is correct? Like, you think you could debate that on like on a valid, logical level, not just like, you know, this is what I feel, but this is what I actually know to be true?
Like I said, I actually don't believe that the Torah and the Bible are completely wrong.
Well, but wrong to Christians and Jews, right? Sure, there might be aspects of them that are true, much the same way that Jewish people or Christians probably believe there are aspects of the Quran that are true. But you think they're wrong. They don't have the correct answer like you do as a Muslim, right?
For me, it just doesn't make sense to have like a Trinitarian belief, for example. Logically, for me, it doesn't make sense. To have 3 and 1, like three entities with equal power that equal one being. It doesn't really make sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I guess like the problem philosophically from that is that if we try to construct a system of ethics and then extrapolate laws from those, if we do that off of a religion, you have to be able to tell other people that their religion is wrong, which makes it really difficult. Because if you want to construct laws based on how we should treat homosexuals or how we should treat women or whatever, if I try to make secular philosophical arguments, I can argue those. But if your argument all stems from religion, I can't really argue with you at all because your foundation is your holy belief. Or like a Christian and a Muslim could never argue their beliefs because fundamentally they disagree with each other.
Yeah, but where do you, for example, get your morals from? Do you think morals are objective?
No, I don't. So like I argue, so the two kind of like axiomatic foundations that I rest on are personal freedom and bodily autonomy, personal freedom, and societal well-being. These are like the two kind of things that my ethics system is foundationally based on. I believe that most people would agree with these axioms in an argument, and then I kind of extrapolate my ethics from there. But I think that I can construct a system from top to bottom that doesn't rely on the belief in any type of supernatural entity and doesn't have all of that kind of packaged in with it like Islam or Christianity would. So I feel like I have an easier time arguing my ethics in a secular format as opposed to a religious person.
Okay, but don't you think that like a secular state or something can make rulings or moral rulings that are wrong? Do you think that all is correct?
When you say wrong, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by wrong?
For example, let's say like the majority in a state decides something, right? Mm-hmm. That's, you can say, secular speaking is correct, like the well-being of the majority, mm-hmm. or like when they decide something, that's better, like the correct decision, right? Mm-hmm. Do you agree with it?
Well, I mean, like if all of them share my axiomatic foundations, then yeah, I would hope that every decision they make is correct. Yeah.
So what about like people in Germany, for example, in Nazi Germany, voting for Hitler, and like as the end result, like so many Jews got killed and stuff like that? I mean, the people, the majority voted, so it is correct, right?
Well, so like in these cases, I would say that these people don't share my same fundamental axioms, that like respecting like bodily autonomy, respecting individual liberty and whatnot, that these people obviously don't share this belief because the same thing with like slavery, right? Well, people were, the majority was in favor of slavery, so isn't that kind of a failure of your system of ethics? I would argue that these people don't really share my system of ethics, because I don't believe that any group of people could see itself superior to another group of people based on something like race or genetics. I don't agree with that. That's not part of my system of ethics.
But what if the majority of the states thinks that way? Would you profit that like thing and say, okay, you won, I have to follow that? Or
well, no, I don't believe. I have my ethical system that's rooted in certain axiomatic beliefs. None of those beliefs state that whatever the majority says is what is ethically true, or like that. Just
but you said the well-being of the people. What if if the well-being of the people is deciding like things by voting?
Yeah, so like the reason why I kind of have these two foundational beliefs is because it's the well-being of the people with respect to your personal autonomy. So for instance, I don't think that it would be okay for 1 million people to vote to kill 1,000 people if it makes the 1 million people better off. I wouldn't agree with that because that's a violation of somebody's personal bodily autonomy, that the state should intervene to disrespect a person's autonomy as little as possible, to whatever is necessary.
But what if they have to take that action to ensure the majority has, how do you say it? Like, what was your wording? Like well-being? That the majority is better off, higher well-being. Killing one person so that many people have better well-being? I wouldn't consider that trade-off to be ethically permissible, that you could kill some people for the convenience of others. This is why I'm pro-life. I don't agree with abortion. I don't think you should be allowed to take a life because it benefits another person. If you were talking about like trading a life for a life, that gets a little bit different. But but I don't believe that like 1,000 people can be killed to economically suit 10,000 other people, or that you could enslave a class of people to make them sad, but increase the overall well-being of the other people. This is why I have that tenet where the respecting the personal autonomy of a person is very, very important. It's central to what I would consider my moral or ethical system. Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It's I mean, like there are a lot of finer points that we could argue about or debate, but I could always ground these in some sort of rational statement. Whereas for me to argue with you about your beliefs, it would always come back to Allah. And if I don't buy into Allah, then we're kind of at a crossroads that we can never pass each other in, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the morals for Muslims, for religious people, come from God in general. You can say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we believe that's the best resource of morals, because God is all-knowing. He's objective, so the laws or the morals that he gives the people are actually the best for them.
Yeah.
Because he has knowledge of things that we don't, right? As humans, we are limited in our thinking and stuff.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like a natural law. You feel like there is an objectively correct system of morals that reveals itself in the world. Yeah.
And the only person that can give those laws, because humans make mistakes and we can make wrong laws, is actually a person with complete knowledge of everything and who's all just and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay. Do you have any other questions or issues or anything you wanted to chat about?
I don't know. I wish I was on the call when you talked to the girl, because she said so many wrong things I can't think of right now. But
Sure.
It was really, really easy to disprove like most of her statements. But
If I do a second one, maybe I can set it up between like you and her. Would you be comfortable with that, or would that be too nerve-wracking? Or
yeah, would be awesome to be there.
okay, sure, cool.
I mean, it's like I talked to some ex-Muslims, and in most cases they leave Islam not because of the religion itself, but because of culture or like their circumstances. It's like not the religious beliefs or some things that say like some things that are written in the Quran or something that deter them of Islam. It's actually they have problems with their family or with their husband or something like that. And most of the ex-Muslims actually like either that or they actually have no idea about Islam at all. It's like just culture for them, right? So if you ask them like recite one surah of the Quran, which like little children already know, like it's super easy, like 5 verses or something, 5 sentences,
Yeah.
they can't actually do that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% here. This is like this would be like if somebody grew up in Alabama and they were saying, well, Christianity teaches you that if there are gay people, you have to kick them and bully them at school. And it's like, well, okay, that's not really Christianity. That was like the place you lived in the culture at the time. If I were to ask you for a Bible verse that says you have to kick like children, you couldn't really give me one, right? That are gay. Like you would
Exactly,
be able,
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. But I don't have the prerequisite background to really debunk those claims. All right, how old are you?
Yeah.
If you don't
I'm
mind me asking.
25.
You're 25. Are you like are you like actively involved in like a mosque or anything? Or do you do like
I mean, I go to the mosque, like I try to go at least once a week, and Friday is like the Sunday for Christians, I guess.
Gotcha. Do you want to be like like an imam or something when you get older? Or
No.
Some type of religious scholar or anything? No.
No, like I'm studying right now international business, and I don't think. I mean, I love my religion. But I don't actually want to be an imam or something. No.
Okay. And then just because I guess, okay, so I'm interested because I don't know where you stand on a lot of these things. Do you think that something like oh God, I want to see the hadith. No, what's the thing that the women wear on their head? Hijab, yeah. Do you think that something like that should be like morally compelled in society, that women should wear like the hijab?
I don't think there's anything that you can enforce a woman to do. If they want to, they can. If they don't want to, they shouldn't. That's pretty simple, and it's also Islamically that way. You can't force anyone to do anything. If they want to wear it, they can. If they don't, they should. I mean, it's recommended to wear, but you're not forced to. Like, for example, I have 2 sisters that wear it and 2 that don't. Like, I have like 4 sisters, and yeah, I'm the only boy, but 2 decided to wear it out of their own reason, like, and 2 don't. So, and that's perfectly fine with me and my parents and our family and stuff. I mean, I guess because we were born here in Germany, maybe that's a little bit different.
Where does the hijab come from? Is this a hadith thing or is this a Quran thing?
It's actually in the Quran, I think, like that you need to cover your it's called awra. And for men and women, there's actually clothing rules also. I mean, the Islam is generally, like you can say, that gives you rulings for everything in life, like things you can do, you can't, even things you can eat, how to greet others and stuff like that. So that if you want to really find stuff like that, you can find it in everything. Also for clothing, for example, for men, I mean, I don't personally follow that, but for men, you can't show your knees, and to the belly button needs to be covered all the time in Islam.
Gotcha.
Like for men, and for women, it's like from the ankles, I guess, and to the hands and the head. and the chest, I think. But yeah.
So if that's something that's found in the Quran, how do you reconcile your sisters choosing not to wear it?
Because it's not a law. It's like a recommendation, I think it says.
Okay. Gotcha.
And also in Islam, like, I mean, you have people that are Muslim but also eat pork or drink alcohol. I mean, in my opinion, they're still Muslim. Like, you can't. I mean, for me, it's more important that someone actually prays than for them what to eat or what to drink. You can never say this is a Muslim and this is not a Muslim because of the things they do. It's always in their heart, like. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Any other things or anything? You live in Germany right now? Is it like 5 a.m. over there?
It's 3 a.m. right now.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. Also, if you like, I mean, about politics a little bit, I can talk to you about politics a little bit about Tunisia if you want or something like that.
Maybe another time, yeah. I've got a lot of people that want to step in and chat, so.
All right, yeah.
Just curious, where did your family come from?
My parents come from Tunisia, but
Gotcha.
all of me and my sisters were born in Germany.
Okay.
But yeah, my parents actually, like my father, for example, he didn't choose to stay in Germany. He was studying in Germany, but in terms of politics, there was something in the 90s, I think, in Tunisia that forbid him to go back to Tunisia because like the party he was in and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I'm kind of curious. So I guess kind of politically speaking, are there widespread things that Germans believe in that you disagree with from a religious point of view? Like Germans believe in this concept politically or whatever, and you find that ridiculous because of a religious reason?
No. As a Muslim, when you live in a country that it's not a Muslim country, you actually have to follow the law. It's an Islamic ruling. It's an Islamic teaching. You have to. There's no choice. You can't say, I live in Germany, but I prefer the law of Saudi Arabia, so I'm going to act like according to the law of Saudi Arabia.
Okay, I'm really, really curious about that statement. Christians oftentimes will defend the Christian religion by saying that Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is him, to show that you should respect the laws of the country that you're in. Can you source that in the Quran, or like is there a hadith that talks about that that Muslims should follow the laws of the country they're in?
I'm pretty sure I can find a source in like some minutes, yeah.
Okay,
2-3 minutes
if you want, you can shoot me like a message afterwards. I'd be really curious because that's a big thing that Christians retreat back to. That they'll always say that render. Are you familiar with that quote, the render unto Caesar thing?
No, I'm actually not. No.
Okay. Oftentimes when I say if you bring up like Muslims can live in other societies peacefully, Christians do it as well. There's a verse where Jesus, I should know this, but I think that there's like somebody's asking Jesus like, well, hey, should we say fuck the government because we don't want to give him our money and our money belongs to God or some shit? And then Jesus says, render unto Caesar what is him because he's on the money or whatever. And it's a way of reconciling your personal Christian beliefs with the laws of like a nation you live in. And Christians point to that as being like the reason why Christians can integrate to society, but Muslims can't. So if there's actually like a part of the Quran or a very popular hadith or whatever that also says something similar about Muslims adhering to the laws of the countries they're in, that would be an interesting counter to that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in the hadith and also in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the time of the Prophet, many Muslims like visited different countries and stuff like that, and they never like immediately they never like I don't know forced their laws upon the people there or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like Indonesia is a pretty good example of a country that there never were there any like Muslim soldiers or something like that in Indonesia. It became a Muslim country by trade, like traded goods from Muslim countries there, and the people, the native peoples there like the religion, so they became Muslim.
Sure.
Like it's about like. In a like certain amount of time.
Gotcha. What do you think about?
I can send you.
What do you think about like Sharia law? What's your opinion on that? I'm curious. Do you believe in like that there should be separate religious courts for religious issues, or how do you view that?
Do you mean in like a Western country?
No, in like Germany where you live. Do you think that you should have like local Sharia courts for like religious matters?
No, I don't think so. No.
So like let's say that
most of the Western law is according to Islamic law anyways. Like you can't kill, you can't steal and stuff like that. Like 98% or something is like similar. I mean, some differences in terms of like how to punish or something like that. But yeah, and also like I said, the Sharia law has a really bad like taste in Western media and Western society, and also among Muslims, I think. But like I think in a true country that follows Sharia law, there's like no crime and stuff like that. It's like an ideal model or something, you can say. And there's not a single country in the world right now that actually follows Sharia law, in my opinion, and also in the opinion of a lot of Muslims, because it's actually, it's like a perfect model of a society, I guess.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool.
I think I sent you the link then if I find it.
Okay, sure. A couple people have linked me a couple things. I think this is from the Quran. O you who have believed, obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those in authority among you now. And if you disagree over anything, refer it to Allah and the Messenger. And if you should believe in Allah on the last day, that is the best way and best result, or something. I think this is from the Quran. Chapter.
Yeah, but that's not about like if you live in a different country or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure I think it's a hadith. I can ask my sister. She's maybe a little bit more knowledgeable about that stuff. That you go into a different country, you have to obey the laws of that country and stuff like that. That's pretty well known amongst Muslims, actually.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate the conversation. Do you have or add me as a friend on Discord or whatever, and I'll see if I can contact you if I talk to that lady again, if you want to come in and chat.
Yeah, if you ever like talk to someone or like an opinion about Islam or a question or something, just like hit me up. Like I would be glad to answer some things.
Okay, cool.
All right, man. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. Oh wait, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, wait. Okay, sorry. I'll ask you another question. How do you feel in general? What like sect of Islam are you under?
I'm Maliki, but that's only because my parents were. But I don't really follow any madhab, they are called. I'm Sunni, so if that's the question, Sunni or Shia, that's Sunni. But they're also like under categories under Sunnah. But so I also like. I don't think there's like big difference. I don't really want to put myself into a specific category because it's kind of weird, I think.
When you look about like at the situation going on like in Iraq or Syria, and you look at somebody like ISIS, what do you think about something like ISIS?
I think that they're the worst people on earth, pretty much. Like they're terrorists. They should be like punished, and they shouldn't exist. But there's also, I can link you the hadith right now, I think, about people like ISIS from the Prophet that says that they are called khawarij in Arabic. That basically means like outsiders or something like that of the religion. That if they ever get power, they will destroy like Syria, which is called Asham in Arabic, the places there, Iraq and Iran, I think, like that places, and that's exactly what's happening right now. And that's a hadith from the Prophet. Like if people like that, because they use the religion and they twist the meanings of some verses in the Quran in a way to suit themselves.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, most Muslims, yeah.
What do you think about like Gulf states' participation in that kind of like Sunni stuff going on in the Middle East? What do you have like any thought? I'm just curious, like in terms of like places like the UAE or Saudi Arabia funding Sunni extremism in places like Iraq and Syria.
I mean, Saudi Arabia is probably one of the worst countries in my opinion. Like I don't really like it at all. They do a lot of bad shit, and they're against like many Muslims as well, and they should be condemned and should be like, I don't know what you should do against them. But most Muslims, especially Muslims living in the West and in other Muslim countries, like except the Gulf states. I mean, also the people in the Gulf states, the Saudis themselves, don't agree with their government. The Saudi people themselves, they don't really have anything to do with stuff that's happening in the government. I mean, that's the same like in every country, you can say.
Sure.
But they disagree with a lot of things, but they can't really speak out. It's like a really, really bad country, Saudi Arabia. Like women's rights and stuff like that. It's really, really bad.
Have you ever heard, I hear these rumors a lot from other friends that are from this region. Is it true that Saudi Arabians are really hypocritical, that they like go to other countries to party and do a bunch of like pretty irreligious shit and then go back and preach, you know, like fundamentalist values? Is that actually true, or is that just kind of a meme? Or
that's true, and they also don't actually have to go to other countries. They have stuff like that in the Gulf states, in Saudi Arabia even. There's like even alcohol, like there are fatwas. I mean, the other guy talked to you, the Turkish guy talked to you also what that is. Fatwas are basically from living scholars right now that can give rulings that like about stuff that's happening right now. Because in Islam there's like I think it's 5 or something points, the Quran, the Hadith, and stuff like that, and then also fatwas, because stuff is new in the world and there need to be rulings. Like there aren't rulings about, I don't know, about cell phones or something like 1,400 years ago. So there needs to be some flexibility in the religion to give rulings for stuff that's new or something.
Sure.
According to the act. And fatwas are stuff like that. And there are fatwas in Saudi Arabia, or I don't know where it was, in a Gulf state, that actually allow the use of alcohol or something that's like clearly forbidden in Islam. So that's, I mean, you see that's pretty hypocritical.
Sure.
They have like alcohol, which... Yeah.
Speaking of fatwas, I'm curious, are you familiar with bin Laden's fatwas on...
Yeah.
Do you think that most of his statements were just bastardizations of the Quran to justify terror attacks against America? Or because it seems like in reading through his fatwas that it's like, am I pronouncing that right? Fatwa?
Fatwa, yeah.
Fatwa. That it seems like in reading through his, it was like 50-50 geopolitical justification and then justification from the Quran. Do you feel like he was bastardizing his interpretation of the Quran to justify his attacks against America? Or
of course he was, because attacks against innocent people are always forbidden. Also, like there are some verses which some right wings or something post something sometimes of the Quran that says kill all disbelievers wherever you find them or something. Just read the verses before and after that, and also read the context of the time where it went down, and you will like it will explain it easily. You can never kill innocent people. There are like rules of war in Islam. You can never kill innocent people. You can kill women. You can kill children. You can kill old people. You can't destroy temples. You can't destroy churches.
Is
synagogues.
there any chance, so just to be really clear here, is there any chance that I could get a valid interpretation of the Quran that would only include like practicing Muslims as innocent people, that people that practice a foreign religion might be considered guilty just because of their religious beliefs or their lifestyles?
Nope. That's impossible. Innocent people always considers everyone, no matter what religion or lack of religion.
Okay.
There's also it's in the Quran, I think it's an ayah that says if you kill one innocent person, it's like if you killed the whole of humanity.
Gotcha. Do you
So the only ruling is in war. Like and also in Islam, a country isn't allowed to make how do you say offensive wars, like to be the aggressor. It's forbidden. You can only be in your country. And in that defense, you're only allowed to kill combatants, like soldiers from the attacking forces. You are not allowed to kill civilians or anything like that. And also infrastructure and stuff like that you can't kill. You can't even cut down trees in war. There's also a hadith from the Prophet that says with his army, when they were walking, like I don't know how much it was, like it's like 10,000 people, and they saw like in their way was a dog which just gave birth with their whelps in a spot. So his army made a detour to not distract the dog with like it's really hard to explain. I don't know.
Sure.
Like, the value of nature and not disturbing nature and innocent people and stuff like that, it's really important in Islam, actually.
Gotcha. Okay, so final question. I'm just kind of curious. Do you consume a lot of international media and a lot of the meme media that like I watch on YouTube, like people like Lawrence Southern or Sargon of Akkad or any?
I watched the debates you had with them. I don't really watch like centrists or like right-wing media a lot.
Sure.
Sometimes it's pretty funny, I guess. Like people trying to defend Trump and stuff like that. It's actually sometimes really funny. So,
how do you feel about the West's kind of view of Islam and our kind of approach to dealing with it? How do you feel personally, and then how do you feel as a Muslim? I'm just curious.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
How do you feel society views you as a Muslim, like in the Western world?
In general, it's not that bad. I guess there's some kind of Islamophobia in the media.
Mm-hmm.
But like also like my friends sometimes, which was really shocking. Like when I still was in school, like person that I considered one of my best friends like called me terrorist for fun, and he didn't realize that it actually like was really bad. Like any Muslim is a terrorist or something like that. I mean, it's also a meme in Twitch chat a lot, like
yeah,
Anil and stuff like that. But I mean, I guess for me as a man, it's easier. It's a lot easier than for a woman, especially if she openly wears a hijab. I mean, it's like a statement for like everyone when they see her, they know she's a Muslim, right? So she gets attacked a lot easier than a male. Like my sister and my mother, even like my old mother in a train, like got attacked, like not physically but verbally by an old man in Germany here, which is really really like concerning, I guess. And there's not really much that you can do. I mean, like screaming at her and telling her to get out and stuff like that. Like, what the hell? And my sister also, like, we were born here. Where we're supposed to go. Sometimes it's a little bit bad in the media, but in general, yeah. Depends on what media you consume, I guess.
Gotcha.
Probably
okay.
in America it's a little bit worse.
Yeah, I was just curious. Yeah, okay, I think that's all I have for now. I really appreciate the conversation. I'll contact you again if I talk to that one lady or if I have more questions or anything about Islam.
Yeah,
a lot of the people that were messaging me to chat are saying that most of what you're saying sounds really good, so thank you for providing
Same.
me good info. Yeah.
Much love, Destiny. Much love to the chat also.
All right.
I try to find things you asked for and send you a verse or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well,
right.
Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, my dude.
All right. See you later, my dude.
Yeah.
Whew. Oh, shit. This guy lives in Saudi Arabia. Let's bring him on and grill him. Or he lived in Saudi Arabia. Why are people in Saudi Arabia so fucked? It's time to get grilled. I've got there are 6 or 7 people that wanted to come on and talk about Islam, and most of them are saying that the last guy seemed like he really understood everything that he was talking about, which is good. Whew. Oh, not safe for work. Click it, boys. What the fuck? Okay, I don't care about this now, man. Okay, I might bring on this guy next who thinks that everything the other guy is saying is wrong and horrible too. This guy sounds really edgy, so maybe we'll bring them on. Maybe we'll set up a debaterino, cappuccino, pappuccino. Mojo, if you want to stay awake for the next 30 minutes. I don't know what time you normally sleep. Hello? Hello? Your microphone's not working. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I had push to talk, sorry.
Oh, okay. Why are you guys so evil in Saudi Arabia, my dude? What's going on?
For fuck's sake, I don't live in Saudi Arabia. I just lived there for... I was born there. And I'm originally Egyptian, actually.
Okay.
And my parents work in Saudi Arabia, so I lived there for 10 years, basically, then came back to Egypt.
When you say, okay, I'm sorry, a lot of this shit gets really confusing. When you say you were Egyptian, is Egyptian considered an ethnic thing, or Egyptian you had nationally Egyptian parents or something? What does that mean?
Egyptian means that I have nationally Egyptian parents. That's how I get an Egyptian nationality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I was just making sure I understand what you said. Okay, so your parents were both of the country of Egypt, and then they had you, and then they moved to Saudi Arabia for work, right?
Yep.
Okay.
True.
All right, cool. Why do you think that? So I'm curious on this. You lived in Saudi Arabia for 10 years. Why are all the people there so extremist, I guess, in their interpretation of Islam? Why do you think? I'm just curious.
My only reasoning, like, for their, like, I wouldn't say it would be like extremism, but it's like they're really like how do you say it? I'm lacking the word in English, like hard-minded, I guess.
Stubborn?
No, stubborn, yeah.
Okay.
They're really stubborn. They can't take the fact that they can't be perfect in their religion. That's my idea for them. They can't, like, as the guy before me said, women have all the choice to either wear a niqab or hijab or whatever they want. But in Saudi Arabia, it's a matter of like a bit of honor, I guess. They want all their women to wear niqab. They want all their women to wear hijab to be like the perfect Islamic state, I guess. And I think there's something that has something to do with like this definitely has something to do with Saudi Arabia being still a kingdom. Like,
Okay.
it has a very large hierarchy for the king and the princes. Nobody can go against the kings and the princes. And if somebody does, then they recite the Islam to them. They say you have to worship your leaders, not worship, sorry. You have to obey your leaders, which is Ta'at Ulil Amr in Quran, if you quote it. So they really like to be clingy with their social status, I would say.
Gotcha. I'm sorry, I'm very ignorant of Saudi Arabia's political system. Your monarch in Saudi Arabia has very real political power, right? It's not like the monarch in the United Kingdom that's not very politically powerful.
No, definitely. He has definitely all the power in his hands.
Okay.
And he's not my monarch.
I'm sorry, my bad. You're right, I misspoke.
Yeah.
Where do you live now? Do you live in Egypt now?
I'm currently in the UK because I'm studying in uni. So, yeah, I moved to the UK.
Gotcha. Okay, was there a specific thing that you wanted to talk about that I brought up? I think you mentioned reform, but then you said the other guy covered it. Was there something else you wanted to talk about for that? Or
yeah, the guy before me seriously covered everything that needed to be said. He had more knowledge that even I had. And the only thing that I wanted to say about reform, people tend to say that Islam is too strict, Islam is too violent, it's a religion of violence. Well, that's not actually the case. Islam actually is derived from the Arabic word salam, which means peace. So it's kind of ironic to say it's a religion of violence that focuses only on violence to spread its like word, I guess.
why do you think so much of Islam ends up being violent in its expression? If you look at things like the Al-Qaeda or the Taliban or ISIS or the current state of affairs in the Middle East, how do you reconcile that a religion of peace can be bastardized to justify so much violence in that region?
I believe they tend to omit the parts that they don't want to follow. There's a quote in Quran that says, I can't remember the first part, but I can recite the second part for it. إن لم يكن بيدك فبلسانك فإن لم تستطع فبقلبك, which is the second. I should translate it in English first for the first and second part,
Sure.
which is, if you see something bad happen or a sin happen in front of you, then you have to act. you can act with your hand, and if you can't, and by hand I mean like physically try to stop the act, and if you can't, then use your mouth, which means like by talking to the and making the situation like disperse by talk. And even if you can't do that by mouth, then within your heart, which is like knowing that what's happening is not right, and giving it like relieving the situation to God, I guess.
Gotcha.
Meaning, what I wanted to say was like violence is not the answer for everything that Islam. It says like, yeah, gays and such other sins have to get like they have to atone for their sins with like physical harm or so, that sort of thing. But I feel that reform is already in the religion, and it gives us freedom to act in the correct way as we see fit according to the situation.
Gotcha. So you're saying, so your argument is essentially that Islam in its current state, if people were to follow the correct hadiths and were to be involved in the correct sex, would be compatible with Western values, is what you're saying, kind of, right?
I'm saying that, yeah, I would say that definitely. And people like Bin Laden, as you said before, who said things that he wanted to believe in order to make what he's doing correct, that's not like real at all, because physical violence is not, and is definitely not the encouraged, not in most situations, it's not the encouraged method of dealing with sin.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess I went over a lot of these with the other guy. Was there anything more, I guess, or anything else that you wanted to add to that, or?
No, definitely he had it covered. He had more knowledge than I did. I would hope like you get him back with the other lady when she gets back too.
Sure. Okay, cool. All right, well, awesome. Well, I appreciate the conversation, buddy.
Thank you for your time.
All right. What was the name of the other guy? Mojo the King, but he's a Twitch chatter, so you're not going to find him in the cool chat. Watch out. All right, I'm bringing in the memer dude.
Yo, what's going on? What's up, buddy?
All right, what's up? Are you an authentic
hold on.
Arabic person?
I'm gonna have to mute your stream. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. What's up, buddy? I always wanted to say that to you.
All right, what's up?
Now,
All right, hit me up with your...
All right, so what do you want to know? Should I say something about myself first, or...?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, what's your background? Religious?
All right,
yeah.
So
3
basically,
months.
I'm of African heritage. I live in Germany. I was born here, and I stopped being religious pretty much at about the age of 18. There was like a euphoric phase I had.
Okay, yeah, as so many of us.
It was pretty memeful, and I was kind of hateful at that time. But right now I'm not, and I think I have a lot to say about the two last guys you were talking to, and
Okay.
I'm not nearly as eloquent as the first Muslim guy, the Tunisian guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope it's understandable for chat and you.
Okay.
All right, so I made a little notepad with things I want to talk about.
Okay.
I want to first make a little disclaimer before I get into this, because I don't want chat and you to get the wrong idea that I'm some kind of Muslim hater. I don't hate Muslims. I don't hate Islam. And it's just, I believe in personal freedom, and I'm just going to talk about what I personally dislike about it. I don't hate the people that practice it. That's what I want to say before I start this, because it's maybe, I don't want to encourage anyone in chat to be a Muslim hater. You know who you are. People that shit on Islam, and it's mostly a race issue, you know, nowadays when people talk about Islamophobia, you know about that. And that's why I got kind of confused. So let's get into this. When the Turkish guys from the third guy before me, yeah. He was talking about how he doesn't like you defending Muslims online and defending Islam online, when in reality that's a misrepresentation of what you are actually doing. Because
sure, I think to be fair to that guy, he seemed extremely secular, as opposed to the
that's
most
true,
recent
definitely.
two.
Yeah, he said himself he was a Kemalist.
Kemalist. Yeah, so very, very, very anti-religion in public life. Sure.
Yeah, and basically what I've been seeing you do is go against that notion that basically is hating brown people due to the fact that most brown people are Muslim, and Islam has a lot of negative connotations in the Western society. And I think that's commendable. I don't think that's an issue at all, and I don't think you should back down on that position. That's about the Arab guy, about the Turkish guy. So let's get to the German Muslim team, because that guy really, really rustled my jimmies.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, it's people like him, I call them rainbow Muslims.
Okay.
And because there's a lot of them in Germany, it's like they have this very greenwashed definition of Islam and interpretation of Islam, where the morally abhorrent stuff that is prevalent in mostly Muslim and majority Muslim countries is kind of downplayed and explained in very specific ways and very, very specific definitions and interpretations, which don't actually reflect in how Islam shapes the culture and the real world. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. Oof, this is a big meme. Okay, I understand if you're not comfortable with this. Could I bring him in and have you guys go over some of those topics specifically? Like, what's an issue that you think is inescapable in Muslim culture that he would argue isn't? Could you talk about some of those specifically?
All right, so I'm going to go into specifics, sure.
Okay,
so,
wait, hold on. I'm going to see if he's available. Okay. I'm curious.
All right.
I don't know if he's still awake or not. Oh, shit, he is here. I dragged him in. Okay, what's up, Mojo? Do you have the stream muted?
Yeah, I'm mute the stream. Give me a second.
Okay, so let me kind of set the stage for this. So New Life is under the assumption that you have an overly idealistic, overly charitable view of Islam, and he believes that there are certain things that will manifest themselves in Islamic culture that are inevitable in Islamic culture. So I was just kind of curious to hear both of you talk about, so New Life, I guess, is probably going to bring up some things that he thinks would be intrinsic to Islamic culture, and then to hear your rebuttal to that. I'm just really curious about these specific things. Okay.
All right, but before he makes his points, I want for him to clarify that everything he says is about Islam itself, not about Muslims. That's pretty important, I think.
Sure.
So the examples he brings,
I agree.
The examples he brings need to be in Islam, either in the Sunnah or in the Quran.
Okay, sure. Okay, go ahead.
All right, let's go. I'm going to start with the big meme you guys had about the gay people and how it's actually not a problem to be gay in a majority Muslim society. And I think that's a super disingenuous way of presenting the situation, where you said you had to have 4 or 3 witnesses. I'm not sure what exactly you said. You have 4 witnesses in order to persecute it in a lawful way, like Sharia law or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's not how it plays out in reality. I mean, just the fact that hold on, let me finish.
Yeah, let New Life finish, and then you can respond.
Because just the fact that it is, displayed in such a bad light in the religious teachings and religious scriptures of Islam makes or basically inhibits the change of mind a Muslim society could have, towards gay people, or basically causes these people to become social outcasts and become hated by their families and their communities and stuff, and maybe be even persecuted in an unlawful way, like mob justice and stuff. Everyone has seen the videos on LiveLeak and stuff. I'm not saying that it's what happens every time, but I'm saying it does happen, and denying that is not productive in, aligning Islam with Western society.
Yeah, I got your point. Can I respond to that now?
Yeah, sure.
Like I said before, the examples you need to bring are examples from Islam or the Sunnah, not from real life examples right now. Because also I said to Destiny before, there's not a single country in the world right now that performs Sharia law perfectly or without flaws. So if for you to say that it's ridiculous to say that there need to be 4 witnesses or that a homosexual can't live in a Muslim country, that's wrong. Because Islamically speaking, they can. The being homosexual is not a sin in Islam. The sexual act of homosexual,
Wait, being homosexual is not a sin in Islam? Are you kidding me?
The act of homosexuality is, yeah, but
Okay.
being like
So
a
you're
person, for
saying
example, that's
penetration is when it becomes a sin.
yeah.
Or what exactly? Like kissing is okay, holding hands is okay.
This is similar to interject. This is similar to Christian belief, where being homosexual is not considered punishable, but it's acting on your homosexual urges. Maybe Islam makes the same
Exactly.
distinction. But
That's the same.
Okay, but
like
when does acting on your homosexual urges start? Like, does it start with
penetration? Like I said, penetration.
sodomy.
Okay, so you
Penetration,
believe it would actually fly in a majority Muslim country to be in public and kiss another guy, and
No, that
any
wouldn't,
outrage?
because there's a ruling also for men and women not to do that, so that doesn't count.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, let's just take us two, because you sound like a pretty cute guy. If we go to Egypt and we sit on a bench in a public park and we make out.
Like I said, you need to differentiate between right now, today, the society today, and Islam as a school of law or objectively, and the Sunnah. If you bring examples from that part, then I would concede your argument. But you always go back to today. If you go today to Saudi Arabia and kiss a boy on the streets, of course you will be punished. Is that Islamically correct, lawfully correct? No, it's not. That's my whole point. And you all the time go to today. That's not the thing we are discussing right now.
All right, but
give me an example, Islamic ruling or Islamic.
That ties back into what I said earlier, that the effects that Islamic indoctrination and Islamic scriptures have on society is not tangible in the way it was literally written in the Quran or said in the Quran, because that's not what happens in reality. That's not how human beings work. That's not how human society works.
I mean, it did though. It did for most part of the Islamic history. It did work, like until like recently.
Give me a civilization where that was the case. When you yourself agree with the fact that there are so many different interpretations of Islam, how can you claim that there has ever been a civilization where Islamic scripture, the Quran specifically, has been followed to the T? You know. Of
course, at the time where the Prophet lived, that's one example, and also until I would say 17th century or something like that. For me, of course there were wars and stuff went wrong, but for the most part, I guess it was followed pretty well. It's just a recent phenomena that I don't know how you'd call it, like in Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. That it's so extreme. It wasn't the case that way. It wasn't the case.
You mean it wasn't extreme because society as a whole wasn't, as the way it is in the modern society?
What do you mean by extreme?
Hold on.
Give an example.
No, sorry. Let me rephrase the sentence. I don't think we're going to disagree on this. Basically, what I'm saying is, you say this is a modern development where it has become so extreme in Saudi Arabia and stuff because we relate it to more open world, to a more enlightened world, where in contrast it wouldn't have been considered extreme, 500 years ago. That's basically what you're saying, because
no, that's not my point. I think
you think the extremists in Saudi Arabia.
Let me respond to that. I think governments and Muslim countries that try to apply the Sharia law or the Muslim law or the Islamic law today, most of the time do it wrong. They don't do it in the time of the Prophet. That's my reasoning. So,
all right. So basically, you think that if Islamic law was applied the way it was back when Muhammad was the Caliph, it would be the best solution for everything.
It would be the best example of Islamic law. Yeah. would be the best kind of Sharia law, yeah. Because of course he's the one that brings forth the manual for, you can say, to how to use it, right?
All right.
So
but,
there's no better person to.
How has Islamic law been back when Muhammad was alive? When we today have so many different interpretations, which you don't deny to be legitimate in their own way. Like, how can you even make this argument about a truthful Islam back then, when there are so many different interpretations, like 1,000 years after that, 1,500 years after that?
We need to differentiate between running a country, running a government. We need to differentiate between like the rulings of a government, the laws that a government puts forth, and like the normal life of a Muslim. That hasn't changed. Like the rules back then for a normal person, how to pray, what to eat, are still the same.
Sure.
But how a government enforces their law has changed. For example, you can say that some minorities in some Muslim countries right now are treated much worse than they were treated 500 years ago in a Muslim country.
But you yourself are saying you can say that, but where's the proof? Like, where's the historical evidence?
Let's give you one example. If you want links right now, I can't give you. I can look them up if you want to wait. That's not
sure. No, I don't need any specific links. Just I can look it up myself. Just
for example, in Spain, in Andalus, in the region called Andalus, when it was under Islamic ruling, there were Christians, Muslims, and Jews living there together and working on science, working on so many things, so many inventions and stuff like that was made back then in that region, and also in Persia, in Iran, and nowadays Jews. I mean, how do you explain that there are still minorities living in Muslim countries today? If you say that they would have been eradicated or something like that, how can you say that they lived from the time of the Prophet till today? The Coptic Church in Egypt, 10% of the population.
When you talk about minorities, I'm not talking about racial minorities or cultural minorities. I'm talking about sexual deviants, transsexuals, homosexuals. Like I don't know why this discussion drifted towards like nationality and race and culture, but basically I was arguing that gay people were treated badly back then, and they are still today. That's what I said. And also, I don't deny the fact that there has been the Islamic golden age and very pleasant times under Islamic rule, but you have to correlation is not causation. So the fact that Islam was the prevalent religion doesn't mean that it was the cause for this good life.
I didn't say that. You said like minorities, and back then you know that yourself, and I think probably Destiny can back me up on this. Gays and lesbians are like more prevalent than in any time of history right now, right? Is that correct or not? There weren't that many.
What are you talking about?
I mean, you can say Greeks or whatever, but in most of the society today,
maybe openly gay people because they were scared.
Yeah, okay, I can give you any. There aren't recorded things of homosexuals in the time of the Prophet, what they did to them or whatnot. But I can tell you only the things like that are clear. The laws, how to determine if someone did a homosexual act or not. I can give you an example. This person named whatever did a sexual act, and how did the Prophet react or something. I don't know that. Probably there are some hadiths or something concerning homosexuality. I have to look them up. I don't know right now. I'm not a scholar or something. But I just drew an analogy, like homosexuals are a minority that you could say is I don't know, is a minority, and also like Jews and Christians and stuff like that were in a minority. So that's why I drew an analogy. How did they survive in a Muslim country back then, and how do they survive today? And today, in my opinion, in some Muslim countries they are treated worse than back then. So I can only assume that homosexuals were also treated better back then than now. That's my analogy.
But that's a false assumption. If like that's not comparable at all. Like Jews and gays compared to Muslim people. Like that's, I don't know how you make that correlate that connection.
Why is that? Why is that wrong?
Excuse me, what do you call it? That simile.
Analogy.
Analogy or metaphor. But but analogy works here. Okay, so
comparison. Comparison.
Okay, sure. Can I? Okay, so let me see if I can reconcile your 2 points of view, because I think I understand what you're saying. Okay, if I'm unfair to summarize either of your beliefs, you can tell me if I'm wrong. So it sounds like Mojo the King is saying that there already exists today a framework by which people can be both faithful followers of Islam while also adhering to standard Western values. But New Life is saying that today, the way that Islam is practiced, a lot of societies just lend themselves towards shittier beliefs. Do you think that's a fair summary?
Hold on, no, that's not the point that I'm defending here. I was just criticizing the fact that he was so disingenuous about some aspects of Islam, like talking about liberal Muslims in Western society and how you can, be Muslim and adhere to Western values at the same time. That's a different topic, and I have different views on that. I was just commenting on.
Don't you think that somewhat happens in the Western world, where there are Muslims that live in Western societies pretty well, that are integrated with Western societies?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Like.
And do you think they're un-Muslim or because they follow Western laws or something?
No, because you yourself said this earlier that this is kind of difficult to say or make an argument for from your perspective, because I don't believe in Islam as a objective reality. So for me, it's like a personal choice to call yourself a Muslim. Like, you don't have to particularly do anything special for me to be able to call yourself a Muslim, I don't have any requirements. That's like, you might as well call yourself like a unicorn or whatever.
Or a Christian. Christianity is the same way that you can be a Christian without really, unless you're like Catholic, you've got to be baptized. But okay.
Yeah, in my opinion, so are we shifting topics towards what Destiny has put in the room right now?
Well, that was just my interpretation of what both of you were saying, that it seemed like New Life, you were saying that in practice, Islam will tend towards certain kind of bad beliefs, and that Mojo wasn't acknowledging that. It seemed like was your...
You got my side really, really clear, I guess. Like I said, man, you can be homosexual and be Muslim. There's nothing in Islamic scripture or law that speaks against that. If you say so, then you have to bring proof for that in your life, or I don't know, because you can be homosexual and be Muslim. There are many examples of that. I mean, if you want historical examples, I can't give you right now.
But the fact that if you look at it literally, you can be gay and a Muslim, technically, that's worthless. That's worthless to gay people in Muslim majority countries. That's worthless for every gay person, even in a Western Muslim community. That's worthless. That doesn't mean anything to them. That they can technically be Muslim and gay, because you go into every mosque and say you're gay, and people are gonna fucking look at you like you're some
Do you think they will kick you out of the mosque?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
because,
so what's the problem?
There are a lot of
maybe they will look bad at you.
No, but they're gonna try to make you become not gay anymore. That's what they're gonna try to do.
Okay, do you think if you go to a mosque, say you are homosexual but Muslim, do you think some people will look bad at you? Yeah, probably.
I don't do you think know. There's so many different kinds of mosques.
Do you think the imam, though, of that mosque will do something bad or look bad at you or something? Probably not. Most likely not. In most cases, not. And
that's an assumption.
Like I said earlier, that's an assumption. You're also assuming things right here. You say they will do bad things. You said you can't be a homosexual in a Muslim country. They will do bad things, or I don't know, they will treat you badly or something. That's also an assumption.
All right, sure. I don't know.
Like I said earlier,
studies. So,
like I said earlier, you can only look at either today as a government like Saudi Arabia and say, they are treated unfairly there, un-Islamically unfairly, not according to Islam they are treated that way. But if you look at Islam alone, as the rulings and the hadith, your point is you have no point there, because Islamically you can be homosexual and Muslim. Only the act of penetration is not allowed.
So for me, listening to this, the most interesting part of me is what I would want to know for my political narrative is, do I need to tell somebody who's Islamic, if I want somebody to integrate into Western society, do I need to tell somebody who's Islamic, hey, you need to stop being Islamic because your shit is fucked and you need to get in line with these Western morals? Or could I say to somebody who's Islamic, listen, there is a framework that exists under Islam that allows for you to interpret your holy text in such a way that Western values are acceptable to you. That's really the root of like what I'm trying to get at in listening to both of you. Does that make sense?
But I told you that earlier, listening. That most of the Islamic rulings are according to Western values.
Yeah, that's what Mojo says. So, New Life, you seem to think that pragmatically it plays out oftentimes different. But do you think that there could exist, or there does exist, communities of Muslims today that have interpretations of Islam that is compatible with Western values, or do you think it just they need to abdicate Islam entirely?
Yes, no, like yes to the former thing. I believe there are communities, and I believe there are Muslim people. Like, I'm friends with a lot of Muslims. I know a lot of Muslims. I'm Afghan myself, so obviously I was raised Muslim. Mm-hmm. I've been to many mosque communities, and you know, I don't have any problem with people calling themselves a Muslim or identifying as a Muslim, because you know, for me it's just a form of personal expression. You know, like it's just a form of personal expression, and basically it. In my experience, it usually binds into you, your personality and your values and your upbringing a lot more than it does bind into which you believe, like the Earth was, or what you believe, how the Earth was created. I'm sorry, it's 4 a.m. almost. You get what I'm saying? You know, I think it's saying more about you, your personality and your values and stuff. Than
I get what you mean, man. You mean like cultural Muslims, for example?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Cultural Muslims. I didn't know that was a term. So
I think it is, right? I see.
So
like
that's why I had this disclaimer.
This is what we were talking about earlier.
Muslims.
When you guys were saying that, like, you don't have to do something to be a Muslim. You can just call yourself a Muslim. The same thing with Christian. Like, well, I can say, like, okay, well, I'm a Lutheran. You don't have to, you don't have to, like, I don't know, like, get, like, a scar or something to prove it, sure?
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
difference being between us is that he makes arguments from a
theological perspective,
theological perspective, and I make it out of a social perspective.
Sure, I understand, and I mean I agree with. So I agree with you, New Life. Obviously, it's undeniable that there are civil rights issues in a lot of Muslim countries.
I agree with that as well, man.
Yeah. Just the thing that I'm interested in for my platform is, like, should my message be Muslims need to abandon their religion and join some other shit because Islam is fucked, or Muslims need to adjust their understanding of their religion or find a more suitable interpretation, right? Because those are two very different things, you know? Like, it's easier for me to tell, like, a Christian. It's easier for me to say, in regards to homosexuality, it's easier for me to say, listen, okay, forget the Old Testament, forget Christianity. You need to be an atheist. You're secular because your shit is just fucked. It's hard for me to say that, but it would be easier for me to say, listen, if we look at the example of how Jesus lived his life, he didn't pass judgment on anyone. It is entirely possible that certain people might be homosexual. God created them that way. Let them live their life and do their thing. It's not for you to pass judgment. That's between him and God, and leave it alone, right? Then in the latter, you can maintain your Christianity and 99% of your beliefs and just modify some things. But in the former, that's a huge deal to tell somebody you've got to leave your whole religion. That's a much more difficult battle to fight, right?
Mojo, you want to go first, or should I say something?
Go ahead, man. I'm going to answer them.
All right. So basically, what I believe is that from my personal experience, I'm a second-generation immigrant.
Look at Sufism destiny.
My mom is not very religious. She calls herself a Muslim, but she doesn't pray or wear the hijab or anything. My dad is fairly religious, but not in a way that he enforces it on his children. And,
can I just make a little point?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Because you said your mom calls herself a Muslim, but doesn't wear the hijab or prays. That aren't criteria for someone to be a Muslim.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke then. I'm gonna...
I mean, she can still be a Muslim and also don't wear a hijab. Like, a hijab isn't, if you wear a hijab, you're a Muslim. If you don't, you aren't.
Yeah, I just said that because maybe that's like the Western perception of how a Muslim woman is usually, you know, not necessarily implying that in order to be a Muslim, you have to do these things. So I think it's just semantics.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
It's all right. Basically, the thing is that when you have second-generation Muslim teenagers growing up in countries like Germany, France, Sweden, and stuff, it's a natural development for them to become more secular, because there's for example, in Germany, there's a very strict or fairly strict distinction between government and church, so that and the society as a whole is very, very secular. So basically what they call this is being in a... Excuse me?
Church tax, Kirchensteuer.
Oh yeah, but that's I think that's a different
not really
topic.
secular, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can step out of church and not pay the tax anymore, so that's a null, basically. Yeah. What was it? That man, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I think it's a natural development for teenagers to become more secular just by being around teenagers of the nation that they are living in. Basically, me growing up in a fairly small German town and only having German friends made me the way I am today. And Destiny, you talk a lot about this, where you say that a person is shaped by his surroundings, pretty much, and that's probably the biggest determining factor of how your personal mindset and set of values is determined.
Yeah, this is when it kind of goes into where I say that, like, I think that if you were to place women in a modern Western society, that eventually they would advocate for their right to work and go out of the house and whatnot. That I don't think you could
definitely, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And I think just time is the factor here. Like, give it time. Like, second generation is probably where the change is the biggest between the first generation and second generation, where the change in mindset is the biggest. Mm-hmm. And my children are probably not gonna have a lot in common with a person that's culturally Muslim or culturally Afghan. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Just because my upbringing has made me lose or not take in a lot of my parents' values, whereas their upbringing is gonna carry on even less of those values, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a matter of time until children or generations immigrate. And yeah, I mean, you could argue that that's a long time and make a immigration debate out of that, but I don't think that's what we're here for.
Can I give you some examples to disprove your argument? For me, for example, like most of my friends,
are you disproving?
About that the longer it goes on with the generation, the less religious people become.
Oh, okay.
Or like of their parents or something. Like most of my friends are German. Like I live in like a big city is near me, but I live like outside a little bit, and most of my friends are German and Christian or atheists or stuff like that, and I still hang out with them most of the time.
Yes.
But that's anecdotal. I have a lot of friends. Yeah. I mean, your stuff is anecdotal as well, or do you have any things to prove?
There are studies where they ask second generation immigrant children if they like identify with a lot of not only if they identify themselves as Muslim, but if they agree with a lot of Muslim values. I can dig that out sometime and maybe send it over.
But the thing is, though, I don't think most of them that answer that stuff truly like research Islam or something like that. I don't know about you. I don't want to make any assumptions, but I don't know like if you really like learned a lot about Islam or like made research on your own or stuff like that. Because I did. Like my parents never forced me to do anything, and also like I have friends who also did.
Sure, but okay. I mean, let's look at it from a statistical or logical point of view. If you are surrounded by 90% of secular people and 10% Muslims, assuming that we have this constant and this objective reality of surroundings shaping a human being, if you are surrounded by 90% secular people and 10% Muslims, like what's the likelihood of, for example, a person, second generation immigrant, becoming either practicing Muslim like you or a secular person? You know, and how do you know that?
Depends on their conviction, I guess.
How do you know do you believe that it is more likely for your children to be as devout as you are, or be more secular like the German people? What do you believe?
It depends. Like you said, it depends on the surroundings, and it also depends on the parents, and it also depends on the individual and the children themselves. How much do they value researching the religion, or how much do they value spending time?
But I would make the assumption that it's more likely for them to become secular. Like if you look at all the variables.
I think that it's true for some things, for behavior.
I can't make the statement objectively because I don't know the numbers. But
real quick, I just want to interject real quick. New Life, are you an actual Muslim, or I'm sorry, not an actual? Do you practice your religion, or are you kind of a-religious?
No, I'm agnostic.
Okay, so some difference between this might be that Mojo is genuinely Muslim. He genuinely believes in his religion, so his idea would probably be that his children would also share that belief 100%, and he would.
Sure, but that was my dad's belief also.
Sure,
and
not 100%. I see. Like, you can never force your religion upon someone else.
Sure.
Also, not on your children. If they don't want to follow the religion, then there's nothing you really can do. You can show them stuff or like speak to them, but you can never force them to do anything. And I think what New Life is saying is true on some things, but not true on religion, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it is on some things, but I mean, like in behavior that you copy, like if you have like bad friends or something, that you copy their behavior and stuff. But I don't know if it's like that in philosophical questions or in religion or stuff like that, like in views like that, in more fundamental views, it's not that you copy your surroundings that much, I think, but I don't know.
All right.
Okay, cool. Well, interesting. All right. Okay. I think that was the main contentious stuff that I was just interested to hear you guys reconcile. All right. I'm dragging you out, Mojo. Okay. Do you have any final memes? Are you good?
Nope, man.
All right. Thanks.
Mojo, it was nice talking to you. Like, you can add me on Discord. Like, I'm genuinely interested. Like, you sound like a nice guy, and you're very eloquent, and maybe we can become friends, man. Maybe we can become friends. You play League of Legends, right?
Right, stop. I'm not going to allow these Muslim enclaves to form in my Discord. All right, goodbye.
Parallel society.
I dragged them out. All right. You need to integrate, motherfuckers.
Shit.
Okay, no. Okay, did you have any final things that you wanted to bring up or anything? Or
damn.
Or anything else you wanted to bring in?
Let's talk about the skeptosphere. If you want to.
Why? Okay, what about it?
Like Lauren Southern and her the way U.S. media represents Europe. That's kind of interesting to talk about.
Okay, what about it in particular?
No, I'm not sure if maybe even you have some, hidden. How should I put it?
Agenda?
Misbelief or
misconception.
Misconception, exactly. Misconception about how society in Europe actually is, or maybe specifically in Germany. So maybe if you have some specific questions about how culturally Muslim people are treated in Germany, or what their role in society is, I would be glad to answer that.
I don't know. I read a decent amount of immigration related to Muslims and whatnot in Germany for my Lauren Southern debate. What do you think I have a misconception about, or what would your question be?
And I don't have any specific questions. So if you don't have any for me, then I don't want to take up any more of your and chat's valuable time.
Okay. It seems to me, I guess just in speaking a little bit about it, it seems to me that there are populations of Muslims that immigrate to Europe that are kind of fucky. Like the North African ones seem like they're really overrepresented in a lot of crime stats, as opposed to like ones coming from like Turkey or Syria, refugees or immigrants. Those seem to be a lot lower in the crime representations. I make that distinction there, and geographically, like the origin of some people.
Yes.
I don't see... I've read a lot about like no-go zones, but every time I look into them, it more just seems like this is just kind of an area where a lot of Muslims live. Whenever I read anything about like Sharia courts, it just seems like there are places where you have like your kind of like...
Those are some nice memes you got there.
Yeah, but
definitely like
there aren't places where it's like you literally have like, you get arrested and taken to like Sharia courtroom and then put in Sharia prison, but it's more like you have like a layer on top of society where if you do things that are seen as bad in your religion, your mosque or whatever would punish you in whatever ways your religion does for shit like that. That's how it seemed to me when I read about it. Sorry, go ahead.
Not at all. Like, have you ever been to Germany?
Yeah, I've been to Krefeld maybe a dozen times. I fly through Dusseldorf, and then I've been to Leipzig once or twice. I'm going to Leipzig again pretty soon. But sure.
Nice. All right.
So I have lots of kebab.
You can go to the to the most dangerous place in Germany. Like you can go to whatever Frankfurt. That's close where I live. Frankfurt, Gallusviertel or Bahnhofsviertel, and You can go there in the late night hours, like 3 a.m., and you would still feel safer than walking through probably the average American ghetto. I can guarantee
walking through
that.
North Omaha in my city, probably. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I think you live in a pretty K-Kona place of America, right?
Yeah, but even in my city, we have
Nebraska.
like decent numbers of homicides in some of the seedier parts of my city. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
That's just
So
America.
that's
It might not
probably
be
drug related, right?
Kind of, yeah, drug and crime related. You might have this misconception about America, but we have crime in every single city. It's not like there's only 10 cities where people get shot at. That's like a regular, normal American thing in pretty much every city in the United States.
I see, but aren't if you had a heat map, wouldn't the hotspots not definitely lie on the bigger cities on the east and west coast, and maybe the
yeah. Like the bigger cities are like a big thing. So like, let me give you an example, okay? So my city, most people around the world have probably never fucking heard of my city, okay? I live in a state called Nebraska, which is a small state that nobody knows about, and the city I live in is Omaha, right?
It's like east of California, right?
Yeah, it's in the middle of the country, okay? In my city, okay, last year, there were 31 murdered people. So 2 people a month in my city, in my little no-name city.
What the hell?
Yeah, in my little no-name city. So yeah, that might be a misconception that Europeans have about America. In America, lots of fucking people get killed and shot here in every single city. It's not just like Detroit, DC, Chicago. Like even in the little cities, like everywhere, but people just fucking get killed all over the place here.
So when you say a lot of people are getting killed, you're talking about the per capita homicides, right?
Well, I'm just talking about I don't know per capita how it works out. But
the discrete number.
I'm just talking about the discrete number. Maybe per capita, maybe it doesn't work out to be as bad since there are so many people that live in the U.S. But I'm just saying that violence is pretty common in a lot of places in the United States. I hear statements from you guys like it was very strange for me in Warsaw, traveling late at night by tram and whatnot, that people were so comfortable walking anywhere. I don't remember there ever being a place I was at in Warsaw where like I would walk through some neighborhoods and I'd be like, "Are we really safe here?" And people like, yeah, what's somebody going to do? And I don't know, it's just weird. It never crosses people's minds in a lot of these European places that somebody's going to pull a gun on them and like rob them. But in America,
definitely.
that's pretty common, pretty much.
Yeah, like it's really unusual if you grow up in Germany as a if you are born in Germany and grow up and to become an adult, it's like super unlikely for you to ever see a gun in person that's not on a police officer.
Sure.
Like that's I have actually let me think about it. I don't think I've ever seen a gun that was not on a police officer, and I'm 20 years old and I live in a pretty urban city, and converse in a pretty urban environment.
Sure.
And
to be fair, I'm overselling it a little bit. It's not like most people walking around in the United States are like fleeing from gunfire.
Sure,
I'm kind of overselling a little bit. Sorry. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think I know that much about America,
okay,
so
sure.
my perception is not too bad.
But the Western perception, to bring it back to what we're talking about, the Western perception is that like people like Lauren Southern would say, there are places in Sweden or Germany where if I walk down the street as a woman, I'm going to get like the shit kicked out of me for not wearing like a hijab. Like Muslim Sharia police are going to come and like beat the shit out of me for doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give her like Lauren personally. I believe like she's not stupid, and I think she does this little like her beliefs and what she represents herself as online is pretty stupid. But I think she as a person is not stupid. Like she knows what she's doing. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows her audience. She knows who she's supposed to cater to and what they want to hear.
Oh, I don't believe that. I don't believe this anymore. I did a long time ago, but I think these people genuinely do believe these things. I really do. If they were faking it,
even Lauren herself that went to Paris and has seen that stuff herself, like, do you think she actually believes that?
Yeah,
Europe is that dangerous?
Yeah, I think so. Because you go to like one area and you can farm a narrative by just seeing like one thing. Did you listen to the conversation I had with the lady today?
No, actually, I tuned in when you talked to the Turkish guy.
Yeah, so like I talked to her, and I would say things like, "Don't you think like in places like Indonesia or whatever that like they treat gay people a little bit better than they do in like Saudi Arabia or something?" And her response is, "Well, no. Like I was in what did she bring up? Bangladesh. I was in Bangladesh and I saw a gay guy get murdered." And it's like,
oh wow.
Okay, well, what am I supposed to say to that? Like how? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
How
do
you answer that? An anecdotal.
Yeah. Like, okay. I mean, I'm sorry.
Really extrapolate anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that people like Lauren Southern will do the same thing. Like, well, and it takes a surprisingly small number of anecdotes to make a very, very scary story. If I were to put together 5 stories of LGBT violence in any state in the U.S., and I know I could find 5 stories in every state in every city in the U.S. probably 5 stories of LGBT violence. I could put together any kind of like, here's 5 different accounts, ignoring the fact that there are hundreds of millions of people that live here, and 5 accounts isn't a very important number. I think you can frame whatever narrative you want and genuinely believe that narrative. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably for the most part confirmation bias, People believe what they want to believe, and having this boogeyman of brown and Neil guy, in Europe taking over and becoming the majority.
The great displacement.
Exactly. Like, oh no, they are outbreeding the white people. We're not going to be there anymore in 50 years. Like these doomsday scenarios, that for white people, for whatever reason, they don't want a not white majority for whatever reason. I think that's basically her audience and the skeptosphere as a whole. And they have this common enemy. And what I want to say is, what my point is, that maybe this is kind of an outlandish statement or kind of radical thought, but I believe that, the skeptosphere, even if they don't say it, even if they call themselves, centrists and call both sides stupid all the time, I think, having this common boogeyman and as in the brown man is deeply racist and deeply racially motivated. Like,
but it's really hard to say
all
that.
All of the Deus Volt memes and the Crusade memes, and
but then they always say that they're just like, well, we're just memeing. We don't actually meme.
Yeah, it's just a meme, Like, it doesn't mean anything really. It's and this thought of white identity, whatever it means, like. I'm not trying to appease to white people, but I would say that I have a fairly, white, if you can call that, like white in what they believe is supposed to be white mindset. I have a pretty white mindset, and that's why I think that's bullshit. And I think that it's very heavily racially motivated, and that there's a lot of racism against brown people. In Europe and America, and what ties into that is, I'm sure there are some of these people in chat, and I want to know that I want you guys to know that I'm talking to you. That when you guys, when someone says, "Oh my God, you're being Islamophobic," when you are criticizing some Muslim guy that is not even talking about a Muslim issue, but just making a statement, and you call them, and they call you Islamophobic, and you come out and say, no, Islam is not Islam. No, sorry. They call you racist because you criticize Islam. Sorry, I mixed that up.
That's okay.
And you say, no, Islam is not a race. Man, how can we be racist against Islam? But
people
when in reality...
People do the same thing about Mexicans in the United States, right? Like, you hate Mexicans. Like, well, that doesn't make me racist. Mexican isn't a race. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But isn't it... Wait, Mexican isn't a race? Oh,
nope.
You mean like it's Hispanic?
Yeah, it would be Hispanic.
Okay,
they say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's criticizing Islam is, for the most part, and I think in a lot of cases, very racially motivated, because Islam, the way it is criticized and displayed in right-wing media, is not the way that Muslim people actually behave, which is the point I agreed on with Mojo earlier.
Sure.
Yeah, and I wanted to make that statement that there's a lot of racism, and I disagree with that a lot. Fuck racists.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, cool. Any other memes you want to bring up or anything?
No. Can I tell people to add me on Twitch as a friend?
Sure thing, dude. If you want to, go for it.
My name is new _ life. I'm gonna type something in chat, a force and E, so you guys can see me, and add me as a friend. So maybe we can chat or something. I play League of Legends.
Okay.
That too.
Awesome.
All right. That's pretty much. It was nice talking to you, man. Like, I've been watching your content a lot. I really enjoy it. It's like kind of you're. Oh my God, I'm gonna sound so slimy, but you're kind of like this last bastion of hope I have in American society. Like you and what's her name?
ContraPoints.
ContraPoints, exactly. Oh my gosh, she makes such amazing videos. I love them.
It's a win-win for me. I'm just trying to go on your good side so that when the great replacement happens and brown people have replaced white people,
when the race war happens,
I get preferential treatment in the new society that the Jews have created for me. Yeah.
When the race war happens, you can become my my underling, and I'm not going to kill you right away.
Thank God. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right.
All right. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Shout out, chat. I love you guys a lot. See you.
See you later.